So exception will occur. So because of that exception, what will happen is rest of the code in the program will not be executed. It will immediately terminate your program. Okay, that's the main behavior of exception. And exception is the event which will occur at the runtime, and the effect of the exception is our program will be terminated. If I say 100 lines of code I created, and some 50th line or somewhere else in the middle of the program exception is occurred, as soon as exception is occurred, rest of the lines will not be executed. The program is immediately terminated. So that is the main effect of exception. But what I want to do is, as a developer, even though the user is provided some invalid input, even though it is throwing some exception, I should able to handle this. Okay, so to continue the rest of the code, so we should able to handle that exception and to continue the rest of the code. That is called as exception handling. Okay, exception handling. So normally we have a code like this. Suppose if I created 10 or 20 lines of code like this, and some particular line is causing some exception, or user is provided some invalid input here, this statement will throw some exception. And if we throw some exception, rest of the lines will not be executed. Okay, but what we have to do as part of exception handling, we have to handle this exception and again go back and execute the rest of the lines. So this is a process of exception handling. And to do this, we have a different ways and we have different blocks are available in Java. So by using them, we can handle this exception. All right. Now today we'll see how we can handle this exception and everything. So let me just show you some example of exception, very simple example of exception. And let's go to our project. And today I'll create a new package called new package day 10. Okay, so under day 10 package, I'm creating a new class called exception examples. Take main method, then finish it. So I'll just show you what is the impact of the exception. So the very important one. So here I'll just create a 2 lines code. So let us say system dot out dot println, and here I can say println. So here I will say some message. Let's say program is started. Okay, this is a simple message. And similarly, I'll create one more message. Program is progress. Okay, program is in progress. And then I will create one more message. 2 more messages. Program is completed and the program is exited. Okay, so now I have created 4 different statements here. Okay, so 4 different statements I have created here. Now what I will do is here I will write some statements. So normally when I execute this code, all the 4 lines are executed here. So we got the 4 lines output here. But now what I want to do is here I write one statement, right, which will causing the exception. So once we get that exception, then we'll see what's the impact of that exception. So here what I can do is I will just asking an input from the user, or you can also directly specify input here, but sometimes we will get the input from the user. But so far we haven't seen, right, how to take the input at the runtime. We can also accept an input from the user. So to accept the input from the user in Java, there is a special class called scanner class. Scanner is a class, and input and is equal to new scanner. So first we need to create an object for this particular thing. New scanner of system.in. Okay, this is a command we have to use. So what this command will do is this command. So scanner is a class from java.util we have to import. So scanner is a class we have to import from java.util package. So this is a predefined class which is present inside the predefined package. So this is the predefined package, java.util.scanner. So by using this particular input object, we can ask the input from the user at the runtime. So if you want to ask the input from the user, we can just say input dot next int, input dot next int. So this command will ask the, sorry, input dot next int. So this is a command. So this particular command will ask the input from the user. And once the user is provided input, it will be stored in a variable called number. Okay. So this is a command, scanner class object we have to use to take the input from the user. So as soon as the user is provided input at the runtime, that value will be stored inside the number variable. Okay. So now I'll do some step here. I'll just say A is equal to, I'll say a number A is equal to 100, and I will divide this number by whatever number is provided by the user. Okay, I'm just dividing my existing number with the number which is sent by the user. So number is sent by the user, and A is a another value I have defined here. Okay, now A divided by number, the result I will print here. System dot, let's say out dot println A divided by number. So this is how, this is the one I have done. So here I'm taking the input from the user, and whatever number I will get from the user, I will divide this A with that particular number. Okay, this is my code. Inside this code I have created like this. So let us execute and see. Run as Java application. So first two lines I have executed, but it is waiting for our input. So we have to provide some value here. Let's say I'll provide you 2. Okay, now enter. Now rest of the code is executed. Now I have passed a 2 here, right? So number value is a 2. So A divided by 2, A value is 100, 100 divided by 2, 50 it is given. It is perfect input and we got the perfect output, and rest of the lines have executed. But here at the runtime, you don't know whether when you have to provide input, right? It is not giving proper message. So what I will do here is I will just write one message, okay? Because enter some input like that. Because user will know has to provide some input there. So here say system.out.println. Okay, enter. Okay, so or else enter a number, enter a number, and then semicolon. So what I'm doing here is I'm just asking the user an input. So actually this is a statement which will capture the input, but this will show you some message in the output. By seeing this message, user will know, okay, I have to enter a number. So whatever number we have entered will be stored in this number variable. Okay. Now when I run this code again, so now we can see it is asking a number. So now we can provide some number here. Let's say I have provided 10. 10 is my number. Then it will get the 10 is an output. So 100 divided by 10 is equal to 10. So this is also perfect. Okay. Now what this round, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to provide a number called 0. So this is a user input, and I have given some invalid input as a 0. So when I provide 0, what happens? Any number is divided by 0, which will produce infinity as an output. So here infinity is not supported. So this particular statement will throw some exception. So because I have provided user input as a 0, now when I execute this one, it will throw some exception. So what kind of exception it is? It is arithmetic exception. The name of the exception is arithmetic exception. So any number which is divided by 0, which will produce arithmetic exception. So previously we have given different numbers and it is given a proper output. But this time I have given 0 as a user input, then it is divided 100 by 0, and then it produced arithmetic exception. So this particular statement is thrown an exception. Println A divided by number is thrown some arithmetic exception. Okay, so what is the impact of this exception is rest of the lines, these two lines output we didn't get here. Okay, so it is just skip the rest of the lines. So this is the impact of an exception. So now we should be able to handle this exception. How we can handle this exception? So why we need to handle this exception? Because the rest of the lines I want to continue to execute. So that's the reason I should handle this exception, even though the user is provided some invalid input. But how we can handle this exception and how we can continue the rest of the code. So there are multiple exceptions like this. This is one of the exception. So I will also show you a few more exceptions, and then we will think about how we can handle that exception. Okay, so we have multiple types of exceptions. I'll show you one more exception. So for now I'm just commenting this particular portion. So this will cause arithmetic exception. This particular statement will cause the arithmetic exception. All right, so now I'm just commenting this. Now I'll show you one more type of exception. So sometimes we may get some type of exception, like for example a number format exception. There are hundreds of exceptions we have in Java, but we are not going to discuss all of them. So just I'll show you few exceptions which are very frequently get when you're writing your programming. And even if when you come to the Selenium, so Selenium is also having certain number of exceptions. Okay, but any kind of exception we need to handle in the same way. But before that, we need to know few samples exceptions. How many types of exceptions, and what are those exceptions? A few exceptions we need to remember. So number format exception. So there is another kind of exception, number format exceptions. Now we'll see when we will get this number format exception. So here, to get this number format exception, so I'll just write statements like this. So I have created one string variable called as s. Let's say s, and inside this I'm storing one string. Is it correct or not? So I'll say string. S is a string variable, and I'm storing a number. But even though it is a number, if it is put that into double quotations, that will be treated as a string. Okay, so even though we have a number, if we put them in the double quotations, that is considered as a string. So now yes contains a string, and the string is 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, now suppose I want to perform certain kind of arithmetic operations on this variable yes. So can we perform on additions or subtraction, multiplications? We cannot perform on the strings. So we cannot perform arithmetical operations on the strings. But if you want to perform any arithmetical operations on the strings, we need to convert the string into number. Okay, so we can convert the string data type into number data type. Number means it can be integer or double, whatever. So first we need to convert a number into string to number data type, and then we can perform arithmetic operations, right? But how we can how we can convert string to number? So in Java, there are some methods are available. They are called data type conversion functions, or we can say data type conversion methods. So in this particular context, I have some string value here, and which contains some numbers. So I can easily convert this string to number data type, and then I can perform certain arithmetic operations. So what I can do here is, first of all, I need to convert this to number. So to convert this number, I'll just use a method called integer dot parse int. Integer dot parse int of variable name. S is a string type of variable. So what this command will do is, this particular command will convert our s variable into number format. Okay, so here I need to store that in a number, so integer n. So this is how we need to do. So if we have a string format of data, we cannot perform arithmetic operations. If you still want to convert that as a number, then we have to use integer dot parse int. And if it is a decimal number, then we have to say double dot parse double. So this integer is a predefined class, and parse int is a method which is already there inside this class. This is a static method. And similarly, we have a double dot parse double. So that is also a predefined class and predefined method. And by using this methods, we can convert a string type of data into number data. So this particular portion will convert to the n. So perfectly right. So now when I execute this code, everything goes well. So now everything is perfect. Now this variable, we can perform any arithmetic operation on this variable. So simply I can say here is system.out.println. So here I can just say n plus Additionally, I'm adding 100 here. So here n is a numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You will get it here. So that is a number format. So once you get this number, and additionally I'm adding 100 here. So when I run this program, it will be perfect. So now existing value is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and additional 100 I have added here. So when I add 100, this is the latest number. So this is the number is the output you will get. So till here perfectly right. So now what I want to do here is I want to take this value as an input from the user. Okay. So we can also use scanner class and get the number from user, but here I'm just hard coding for now. So this number, this is a basically string type of data, and converted that into number format, and then we are able to do this. If I don't convert this into number, I cannot perform any arithmetic operation on the strings. Okay, so here it is perfectly working. So here you can pass any numbers so that it can convert that into number, and it's giving something perfectly right. Now what I will do is, instead of this number, I'll pass some string like this. Okay, so now this is also string. So even though when I pass some numbers inside the double quotations, will be considered as a string. And even if you pass the characters, this is actually string, right? But can we convert this string into number? It is not possible, right? So if you have some numbers inside the quotations, because they are numbers already by default, so we can convert them into number type. That is possible. But if you have some alphabets here, it is not possible to convert to the number. Okay, so it is not possible because they are characters. How we can convert the characters into numbers? It is not possible. So previously we have already number inside the quotations. Numbers are there. Even though that is a string, we are able to convert. But this time we have a string here. Some alphabets we have. So this will throw some exception. When I run this code, now we got one exception called number format exception. Number format exception. So this particular statement is throw number format exception. So this is a statement. It is throw number format exception because we cannot convert this one into number. So that's the reason this is given number format exception. So this is another type of exception. Okay. And similarly, we have a different type of exceptions. So I will show you one more type of exception. So let's comment this. So now we'll see one more type of exception. So here I will create one string variable, string yes is equal to, I'm just assigning null. So null means unknown value. Null is nothing but unknown value. Okay, so unknown means I don't have any value in the s. So s is equal to null. Now I want to try to, or what I can do is I'll just put some string initially. Okay, I'll just say welcome. So now I need to find out length of a string. I want to find out length of a string. So how we can find s dot length. So this will give you the length of a string. So when I print this value, system dot out dot println s dot length. So length is a string method which you already discussed in the previous sessions. So s dot length. So this will give you length of a string. So when I run this code, it will give you 7. So 7 is an output and rest of the code is also executed. So now this is written 7. Now what I will do is, instead of putting some value here, I will just assign null. So null means it is an unknown value. Means we don't have any value at all. But still what I'm doing, I'm trying to find the length of a string. Even though if you don't have a string here, I'm trying to find the length of a string. So this will cause null pointer exception. So it is causing null pointer exception because we don't have anything in this variable. We have just null. But on the top of nulls, if you try to perform a method or if you try to execute a method, we'll get null pointer exception. So this is another kind of exception. Null pointer exception. Now we'll see one more exception. Last type of exception. So here I'll create one array type. So let's say integer a is equal to new int of, I'll say 5. So this is an array variable which can the size of array is 5. So that means I can store 5 elements. So 5 elements on the sense index will start from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 0 to 4. So starting index is 0. The ending index is 4. So from 0 to 4, I can store any number because 0 to 4 locations are allocated. So maximum is 4. So now what I want to do is I want to store in the 10th location. I want to store some value in the 10th location. So do we have a 10 location here in the array? No, right? So maximum is 0, minimum is 0, maximum is 4. So we don't have the 5. So it will not, it can accept the elements only from 0 to 4 positions. But here what I'm doing is I'm trying to enter a new value on 10th location. But we don't have the 10th location. The maximum limit is only 4. So then it will throw some exception. So what is exception? Array index out of bounds exception. So this is very common exceptions we will get whenever you are working with the arrays concept. So this is another kind of exception. So this will throw array index out of bound exception. So like this, we have n number of exceptions are there in Java, but we should able to, what is the impact of this exception is, as soon as this statement is thrown an exception, rest of the lines of the code is not executed. Okay, so that's the main problem with this exception. But still, even though I got some exception, I should able to execute other type of statements. Rest of the statements I need to continue. So that's the concept of exception handling. So far we have seen what is an exception, what are the different types of exceptions. Now I'll show you how to handle these exceptions, okay, to continue rest of the code. So to handle these exceptions, we have to use one try catch block. And before that, let me discuss types of exceptions. We have seen what is an exception and what are the different scenarios where we can produce our exception. Okay, so we have reproduced different types of exceptions. So here the type is nothing but arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, all these things are the different types. So basically, actually there are two types of exceptions. Okay, so there are two types of exceptions. So what are those exceptions? Checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. So there are two kinds of exceptions. One is checked exception, the other one is unchecked exceptions. So what is checked exception? What is unchecked exceptions? So checked exceptions are the exceptions which are checked or identified by the compiler. So that means whenever you start writing your code, before executing your code itself, before executing your program itself, compiler will notify you. So and so statement may throw some error or throw some exception at the runtime. So they are called checked exceptions. Okay, so if you have a checked exception in your code, you cannot even compile and execute your code. Okay, that's a checked exceptions. And there is another category is unchecked exceptions. So unchecked exceptions are the exceptions which are not checked or identified by the compiler. So these exceptions we will get at the runtime. So now whatever exceptions I have shown you so far comes under unchecked exceptions. Arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, number format exception, then array index out of bounds exception. So these are the examples of unchecked exceptions. So for whatever I have shown you is comes under the unchecked exceptions. So there are two kinds of exceptions, checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. Checked exceptions, why we are calling as checked exception? Because compiler is able to check it at that at the time of running at the time of writing your program itself, design time. But unchecked exceptions are not catched by the compiler. So that's the reason we are getting those exceptions at the runtime. Okay, that's the basic difference between checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. So now we have, first we'll discuss about unchecked exception, then we'll go for checked exceptions. Okay, so far I have shown you how to reproduce this unchecked exceptions. Now we'll see how to handle these exceptions. I'm currently focusing on completely on unchecked exceptions. Okay, so now we'll see how to handle exceptions. That means unchecked exceptions. How to handle exceptions. So how to handle exceptions? So to handle these exceptions, we have to use try block statements, try catch block. So I'll tell you what is this try catch block. So this is a statement we need to use to handle that exception. So what we have to do here is, whatever statement is causing that exception, we need to analyze this first. So whatever statement is causing that exception, we need to keep that statement inside the try block. So statement which will cause the exception, statement which will cause the exception will be part of try block. Now here in the catch block, we need to write the recovery steps. If an exception is occurred, what we have to perform, what we have to do. So those recovery steps we need to add in the catch block. And one more important thing is, whatever exception type it is returned, so that same type of exception we have to specify here, exception type, and then only catch block can able to handle that exception. So whatever the statement is thrown, suppose this is thrown some arithmetic exception, and catch block we have to specify the arithmetic exception. And if the statement is throwing null pointer exception, then in the catch block we have to specify the null pointer exception. Okay, so this is how we need to handle. But at the time of writing your program itself, as a developer, I need to analyze. So wherever there are chances to provide a user input, so we need to think about positive and negative way. So if a user is provided some positive input, that is fine. If the user is provided some invalid input, there are some chances to get an exception. So we need to analyze what kind of exception it may throw. So we need to put that statement in the try catch block. So what I can show you is here, let me just try to handle arithmetic exception. So let me just enable this. So arithmetic exception I'm enabled here. So now what I will do here is, when I execute this program, so while writing this program itself, as a developer, I should know that suppose I am expecting some input here. Suppose user is provided some valid input, right? So when I run this code, so user is provided some valid input called 2. So we are getting output perfectly right. But developer should also think about another aspect. Suppose if the user is provided 0 here, then there is a chance to get an exception. But even the user is provided a 0 or invalid input, I should able to handle this, and then I have to continue the rest of the statement. So as a developer, I should think like this. And then what you will do, so there are some chances to get or there are some chances to provide an invalid input here by the user. So what I will do is, I will put this statement in the try block. Okay, so I'll put this statement in the try block like this. Okay, because this is a statement may cause some exception. If the user is provided the valid input, nothing will happen, no issues. If the user is provided some invalid input, then it will causing that exception. So whichever statement is causing that exception, put that statement under try block and handle that exception using catch block. So catch block is responsible for handling the exception. So inside the catch block, we have to specify what kind of exception it is. So it is an arithmetic exception. So every exception is a predefined class in Java. Okay, so we have to specify some variable name here, some variable name. Okay, arithmetic exception is a class, E is some variable name. You can use any variable name. So I'm just giving some E. E is representing some exception. So this catch block will able to handle this exception. And within the catch block, we can normally write some recovery steps. So whatever you want, you can write it here. So I'll write simple message here is system.out.println. So here exception is occur. So when the catch block will execute, whenever the statement thrown an exception, and then catch block statements are executed. So exception is occurred and handled successfully. So I have just created one message. That's it. So now catch block will handle that exception, and then rest of the lines of code. So whatever lines we created here will be continued. Okay. So this statement will throw some exception. Immediately catch block will be able to handle it, and it will print this message, and it will continue the rest of the code. But if the statement not thrown an exception, suppose as a user I provided a valid input, then catch block will be ignored. Catch block will be ignored, and rest of the statement as usual it will be continued. So this is how we need to handle that exception by using try catch block. Now we'll execute and see, run as Java application. So now it is asking a number. So first time, let's say positive case. So when I say 2 here, positive number, then it will give you proper output and we continue with the rest of the lines. But now this time when I provide some invalid input like 0, so what happened previously, it is thrown some exception and rest of the lines are not executed. But this time what happens is it is able to handle that exception. Now you can see exception is occurred and the catch block is able to handle this. So that's the reason it is entered into the catch block and printed this message. And what is the impact of this? We are getting the output from the next statements. So that means we are able to proceed with the rest of the lines. So that is the main advantages of exception handling. Even though the provider user is provided some invalid input, we should be able to handle this by using exception handling concept. All right, so this is an example. Similarly, we can also handle all kinds of exception. So only thing is we need to specify properly what kind of exception it is, and then only it will able to handle this. So similarly, I will also try to handle other kinds of exceptions. So for now, I'm just commenting this. Now enable this one, number format exception. Number format exception. Okay, so I think now this one. Yeah, so this particular one. So this one, I say string is equal to well, and this value we can also get it from the user. Okay, this value also get it from the user. So what I will do is, for now I'm just hardcoded this value here else. So I'll just say 1 2 3 4 initially. So when I say 1 2 3 4, right? So this statement will execute perfectly and it will do the sum of two numbers. But this is a statement will cause some error. If I provide some invalid input here, let's say welcome, then it will throw some exception. So now keep this statement in the try block. Try. Alright, so now immediately we need to catch that one. So by using a catch block. So in the catch block, we need to specify the name of the exception and specify some object here. And here I'll write the same message here. So not here. So inside the catch block, I'll write some message. So exception is occurred and handled successfully. Okay, and then we'll see this. So this is the number I have printed here. So this n should be defined outside of the try block. Okay, so integer n. Okay, integer n. Define this simple variable and here just store that one. Okay, now everything is fine. So it is again giving error. So initialize a variable. Okay, so initially I just say n is equal to 0, but it doesn't have any value. So now I am assigning some value to the n here. After conversion of string to number, I'm storing that value in the number, and this statement will causing that exception. So this time I say number here, so it will not cause any exception, so it will go as usual. So now we can see there's a two statements and this statement is converted. So here 1 2 3 4 is converted as a string, as a number, and is also successful, and then catch block is not executed. So sum of this number is printed here. So sum of this one. So sum of 1 2 3 4 plus 100. The output is printed here, and rest of the lines are executed. So instead of this number, this time I will say some string. Okay, now this statement will, this particular statement causing that exception, and the catch block will handle that exception, and rest of the lines are executing. So this will also executes. I think this will throw some exception. Let's see what this will. This will also give you some output. See what kind of output it will give you. And what you can do is you can just put this statement also in the catch block. Okay, or else keep outside, because you put this catch block inside the catch block, whenever the exception occurs, then only this statement will execute, otherwise not. So keep this outside. So run as Java application. Now we can see here what is happening here is I just say welcome, and now I am trying to convert this welcome as a number, but this is throw some exception. Okay, we cannot convert it. So now catch block is handled and successfully. So we got this message. But in coming out, and what this statement is printed, What is the n? N contains, what is this n? N is a variable. So what is the value of n? Currently 0. Initial value is 0. So 0 plus 100. So 100 is printed. And then rest of the code is completed. So this is how we need to handle number format exception. And similarly, we can also add try catch block to these kinds of exceptions. Okay, this is the one way. So using try catch block, we can handle all kinds of exceptions. And sometimes one try block can have multiple catch blocks. Suppose if you don't know what kind of exception your statement will throw. Okay, so that is another scenario. So what I can do is multiple catch blocks. I'm going to use it now. So I'll just comment this one also. Okay, so I have commented all these things. Okay, or else I'll create one more example. New class, multiple okay, catch blocks. So take this main method here. So inside this code, I will just copy some piece of code from here and take this particular piece of code. And the last two statements, I'm copying it from here. Okay, sorry. Okay, so now let us see this one, this example. I'm removing these things. All right. Okay, so for now, I'm just removing all these things, number format, scanner and everything. So I'm just taking a is equal to 100 and here I'm dividing this number by 0. So this will causing the arithmetic exceptions. Now observe this code. Simple. So here I have just created two statements at the beginning of the code and I have defined a number a is equal to 100 and here a divided by 0 will throw some exception, so that I put in the try block and then handle this exception and then rest of the lines will be executed. So this is a normal scenario. Perfect. So exception is occurred, I am able to handle and rest of the code is executed. So sometimes what happens is, if I don't know what kind of exception this statement will throw. So what kind of exception the statement will throw. We don't know exactly what is the type of exception. In that case, what we need to do is, we can specify multiple catch. There are two solutions for this. So the one is, we can specify multiple catch blocks. So one try block, we can have multiple catch blocks. So one catch block I created for arithmetic exception. The other catch block I will create a null pointer exception. Null pointer exception. So whatever exception names you know, so you can specify those exceptions. So null pointer exception, and I will create one more block, okay, called as number format exception. So like this, you can create any number of number format exception. Okay, like this, you can create any number of catch blocks for one try block. Now, how it will execute? Suppose the statement is thrown arithmetic exception, the first catch block will execute, or the first catch block will able to handle this. If the statement is thrown null pointer exception, then the second catch block will able to handle this. If the statement is thrown number format exception, then third catch block will able to handle that exception. Okay, so one of these catch block will be able to handle. So this is a one way of handling the exception if you don't know the name of the exception. Okay, so this statement is causing arithmetic exception. Now, so here I will clearly specify the name of the exception. So arithmetic exception is occurred, and here null pointer exception is occurred, and here number format exception is occurred, and I specifically written the name of the exception. Okay, now this statement will throw arithmetic exception, so that the first catch block will be handle it. So run as Java application. So now we can see arithmetic exception is occurred and handled successfully. That means this statement thrown arithmetic exception, so catch block is able to handle, and rest of the catch blocks will be ignored, and the rest of the lines will be executed here. Okay, fine, perfectly right. Suppose if I create something else in the try block, instead of this arithmetic exception, I created some number format exception. Then what happens? So number format exception. So I will write the code for number format exception. Okay, so this is a code I can write. This is the one I will write inside this one. This will throw number format exception. Okay. So now these are the two statements I have created inside the try block. So string s is equal to and integer n is equal to. Okay. So now these two statements I have kept it. This is number format exception. This will throw number format exception. So now we can see in the try block, this particular statement will throw number format exception. So immediately the last catch block will be able to handle this. Now execute this. So now number format exception is occurred and able to handle. Then rest of the lines are executed. Okay, so perfectly right. So if you don't know exactly what kind of exception this statement will throw, then you can add multiple catch blocks like this. And every catch block you have to specify the name of the exception. But this is approach we have, but still we have some problem in this approach is, suppose the statement is thrown some other exception which is not listed out here. Okay, so it is thrown some other exception which is not listed out here. And then you have a chance to get an exception. Because none of the catch blocks are not able to handle that exception. So still you have a chance to get an exception. Okay, so that's the problem we have in this approach. But how we can handle this type, how we can overcome this challenge. So if you don't know the exception type, there are two ways. One is you can specify multiple catch blocks with multiple type of exceptions. The other way is we can have only one catch block, and instead of specifying the name of the exception, I can just say only exception, and then it is able to handle all kinds of exceptions. Okay, so I'll show you this scenario. So here, this is a try block, right? I'm just commenting other catch blocks. I'm just commenting other catch blocks, or what? I'll comment everything. I'll write another code. So from here to here, I commented everything. Okay. Now, how we can handle different type of exception by using only single catch block? So that we will see now. So I'll just copy only this part. Okay, now I can see this. Okay, now I can see this. So let us first enable the arithmetic exception. All right. So A is divided by 0. A is already defined 100 here. Okay. So now this particular statement, try block. So this statement will cause in the arithmetic exception. So now catch block should be able to handle that exception. So instead of specifying specific name of the exception, just to say only exception, and then this will able to handle all kinds of exceptions, because all other exceptions are the subclasses of the main exception class. So that's the reason when I say exception here, it is able to handle all kinds of exceptions. Now this statement is thrown arithmetic exception. So here I'll remove this arithmetic exception. Okay. So now this statement is thrown arithmetic exception. So our catch block should be able to handle this. Let us see this. Okay. Now it is handling. So exception is occurred, handled successfully, and rest of the lines are executed. Suppose instead of this arithmetic exception, I'll say another exception. So this should also able to handle by this catch block. So again run as this Java application. Now it should also able to handle this. So exception is occurred and handled successfully. All right. So this is another approach. If you don't know exactly name of the exception, we can just have only one catch block where you have to specify just an exception. Don't specify the exact name of the exception. Just say only exception. So this will able to handle all kinds of exceptions. So this is another way of handling the exceptions. We can specify multiple catch blocks for one single try block, or we can have only one catch block with exception. So that will able to handle all kinds of exceptions. Okay, so guys, are you clear so far? So what is exception, what are the different types of exceptions, how to handle that exceptions using try catch blocks? Okay, so everyone please confirm on the chat window. Are you guys clear? Madhuri, Vani, are you guys clear? All right, so this is about exception handling. Now there is one more thing, try and catch blocks we discussed, right? So there is another block is also there, but that is optional. Okay, so that is an optional. So the simple thing is, finally, there is another one is called finally block. Finally block. So what is this finally block is, along with this try and catch block, we can also write one more block is final. This is not mandatory. Okay, this is an optional block. And this block of statement, whatever statement we created under finally, will be executed every time, even though exception is occurred, not occurred, handled, not handled. In all the cases, the finally block will execute. Okay, but this is not mandatory to put this finally block. Okay, but sometimes we can use this finally block also along with this catch block. But when this finally block cannot handle that exception, but still finally block will execute always whenever the exceptions occurred or not occurred, handled or not handled. So in all the cases, the finally block will execute. Now I'll show you one more example of finally block. Let's create a new class. So I'll say finally block example. Okay, now observe this. So I'm just copying the previous code. Okay, so now I can see here this statement. So these are 2 lines of code, and here I have created one variable integer a is equal to 100. So next int is a conversion function. Madhuri, just hold on. Okay, let me go back. So integer.parseInt. So this is a method. Integer.parseInt, not an extent. Okay, next int is a difference. So integer.parseInt is a method which will convert a string into number format. Okay, string into number format. So integer.parseInt is a method which will convert a string into number format. So we don't have any next int method. Okay, so this is integer.parseInt method. You're asking about this one? Okay, so scanner method. Okay, I got it. So just a moment. So in the scanner, we need to accept the input from the user, right? So let me just show you where we have created the scanner. I think first example. Okay, so I will explain in different example. Okay, so I'll take the another examples. Fine. So basically, nextInt is a method which will use to take the input from the user. Okay, so I will take one more example. I'll show you one more example how to take the input numbers and how to take the strings double from the user. We'll see another program. All right, so now let's focus on this one. So here I'm trying to use finally block. Okay, so here this particular statement is 100, a is equal to 100. I'm dividing this a divided by 0, it will causing the arithmetic exception. So catch block will able to handle this exception and rest of the lines have been executed. Now when I run this as a Java application, now the exception is able to handle, rest of the lines are continued. Perfectly right. Now what I'm saying is I have one more block called as a finally block. So what is this finally block? So we can write anything inside the finally block. And say, I'll say some message system.out.println. So this is finally block. This is your finally block. Okay. So now along with this try catch block, we have another block called as a finally block. So this is not mandatory block to put. So that's the reason I have not used earlier examples. So finally is an optional block. But when this finally block will execute, so finally block will execute every time. So if suppose the statement thrown on some exception, catch block will handle this, still finally block will execute. And suppose the statement is not thrown any exception and catch block will be ignored, but still finally block will execute. Okay. And if the statement is thrown some exception, but still catch block is not able to handle this, still finally block will execute. So every time the finally block executes. So here there are multiple cases we have. So there are multiple cases we have. So there are 3 cases. So exception is occurred, immediately catch block will handle, still finally block will execute. And exception is occurred, catch block is not able to handle. Sometimes suppose exceptions occur, in the catch block we haven't specified a proper name of exception, then catch block will leave that exception. Okay, so in those cases also finally block will execute. And exception doesn't occur, that means try block will be ignored. Okay, so catch block will be ignored, then still finally block will execute. So what we need to understand here is finally block will every time will execute. Finally block every time will execute. So let us see all these 3 scenarios. So first scenario is exception is occurred, catch block is handled. So in this particular scenario, this statement will throw some exception. So the same exception type is specified. So catch block will handle. So we should finally block will execute. So the first scenario. So now everything is done. So statements have executed, exception is occurred and catch block is executed, and finally block is also executed, and rest of the statements also printed. So this is a one case. So exception is occurred, catch block is able to handle, then finally is also printed. So that's the first case. Exception is occurred, catch block is handled, then finally block will execute. Now the case 2. Exception is occurred, catch block not handled. Exception is occurred, catch block not handled. Still finally block will execute. So how it is possible? Exception is occurred, catch block not handled. So here exception throw arithmetic exception, but here I will say different type of exception. I'll say null pointer exception. So now what happens? This exception will throw, this statement will throw arithmetic exception, but here we specify a different type of exception. So catch block cannot handle that exception. So cannot handle that exception means we will not get these statements output, but still finally block will execute. It will terminate the program obviously, but still finally block will execute. Now let us see. This is the second case. Run as Java application. Now we can see first 2 statements executed. Finally block is also executed, but this statement throws some exception. So exception is appeared here. So arithmetic exception is thrown. But what is the impact of this exception? We don't get output from these statements. Program is completed, program is exited. So these 2 statements, we didn't get any output here. Okay, because the try block is thrown some exception, but catch block is not able to handle that exception. It leaves that exception as it is. So because of that, the impact is these 2 statements are not printed, but still finally block is executed. So this is another case, second case. Exception is occurred, but catch block is not handled, and finally block will execute. And the third case is exception doesn't occur. If exception is not occurred, catch block will ignore, and still finally block will execute. So here let us again make it as arithmetic exception. Okay, so now exception not occurred means I'll provide some valid input here. So when I say valid input here, exception will not occur. If the exception will not occur, then catch block will ignore. Still finally block will execute. So now when I run this, so everything is fine. So now it is giving proper output also, because we pass valid input here. And finally block is still executed, and rest of the statements are executed. So what we understood in this example is finally block will always execute, and this is an optional block. If you want to keep this finally block, we can keep it, or else not required. Okay, so this is all about try, catch, and finally block. This is how we need to able to handle that exceptions. And what are the types of exceptions we discussed is unchecked exceptions. We have discussed about unchecked exceptions so far: arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, number format exception, array index out of bounds, and etc. So these are all comes under unchecked exceptions, and we should able to handle these exceptions by using try catch blocks. Okay, so this is a concept of exception handling of unchecked exceptions. Now we'll move on to the checked exceptions. So checked exceptions are the exceptions which will come at the compiler. Java compiler is able to identify those exceptions at the desired time. They are called checked exceptions. So we'll see how checked exceptions will be, and then how to handle the checked exceptions. And this is very simpler than unchecked exceptions. Okay. Now let's go to Eclipse. So in the Eclipse, I'm going to create another example. Right click here, a new class, and I will just name it as checked exceptions. Checked exceptions demo. Take this main method, then finish it. Okay. So here I'll just write a small piece of code. Just understand this. So first 2 lines of code I'm created here, and these 2 lines of code also have created here. So now totally 4 lines of code are created. 4 lines I have added. Now when I execute this code, perfectly run. So now here what I can do is I want to pass my code for some time. I want to pass execution for some time after first 2 statements are executed, and after 5 seconds then another 2 statements I want to execute. So to do this, we have a method in Java. So that is thread.sleep. Thread.sleep, and here we need to provide the time in milliseconds. So for example, here I provided the time in 5000. So 5000 means 5000 milliseconds, and which is equal to 5 seconds. So this statement is perfectly right. There is no issue with this statement, even it is not a syntax error. But still, you can notice here, Java compiler will give you some underline here. So that means Java is able to identify some exception for this particular statement. So these are some statements are there. So those statements will throw some exceptions at the runtime. So they are called checked exceptions. Checked exceptions, and special statements are there. I'll tell you what are those statements. So this is one of the statement which will throw one kind of checked exception. So we cannot compile this code. Even if you start running this as a Java application, it will throw some exception. What kind of exception it is thrown? Interrupted exception. So but the advantage of this is, before running the program itself, our compiler will notifying this. Okay. So now we should be able to handle this exception, because this is a checked exception. In checked exceptions we can, and let me run this. Okay, so checked exceptions we can handle in 2 different ways. Checked exceptions we can handle in 2 different ways. The first way is, as usual, by using try catch block we can handle. You can keep this statement in the try catch block, and the other one is also there. The other approach is by using throws keyword. So by using throws keyword we can handle this exception. So we'll see both of them. But the advantage of checked exceptions is, when you put the cursor here, it will give you the suggestions. The first one is add throws declaration, and the second one is surrounded with try catch. So you no need to write manually anything here. Just select one of these options. So for now, I'm able to handle that exception using try catch. So select this surround with the try catch. Then what happens automatically is the statement is included in the try block. See now, try catch block is automatically added. So this is interrupted exception and some statement which is added in the catch block. E dot print stack trace. So this method will throw some message in the console window. This method will give you the types of exception information will be printed in the console window. So now if you notice here, so try catch block is automatically added, right? So for this particular statement, try catch block is automatically added here. So now when I run this code, first we'll print two statements. It will wait for 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, it will print rest of the lines. Okay, that's what this statement will do. So, but this statement will throw some exception at the runtime, so that we need to include that in try block. So try catch block. So this is one of the approach to handle the checked exceptions. So the other approach is, I'm commenting this. The other approach is when I use thread.sleep here, 5000 milliseconds. Now the other approach is handle this exception is when you put the cursor here, just use the first method. So add throws declaration. Okay, when you click on add throws declaration, so here error is gone, but at the method level, it is added the throws interrupted exception. So by using this throws keyword, we can specify the name of the exception here at the method level, not the statement level. This is a major difference between first approach and second approach. So try block is a statement level. So whichever statement is causing that exception, that statement we have to include in the try block. But what is this throws keyword is a method level. So whichever statement is thrown an exception inside this class, and that exception we have to specify at the method level, not the statement. Okay, so this is another approach. Now when I run this code as a Java application, this will give you first two statements. After 5 seconds, rest of the two statements are printed like this. This is the second approach of handling checked exceptions. So interrupted exception. So this particular statement causing interrupted exception. Interrupted exception. So this is an example for checked exceptions. Checked exceptions are the exceptions which are identified by the compiler. So because the compiler is able to identify these exceptions, so that's the reason it is also giving the suggestions how to handle this exception. Do you want to handle this using try catch block, or do you want to handle this with throws keyword, right? So this is one example. So try catch block can be used both checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions, whereas throws keyword can be used only for checked exceptions, not for unchecked exceptions. So throws keyword can be used only for checked exceptions, not for unchecked exceptions. And throws keyword is a method level, not the statement level. Okay, so this is an example for checked exceptions. Now I'll show you one more example, and there are a few more exceptions we have. So here, okay, so for throws example, I'm just creating this example. So throws keyword or throws example, and take this main method, then finish. So here I'll just copy some piece of code. Okay, don't worry if you're not understood, but the main intention here is I want to show you different type of exceptions. Okay, and put these statements. These are the statements I have added. So basically what this code will do is it will read some text from this text file. So in the C:C Selenium practice folder, I have a test.txt. So if you go and see on the C drive under Selenium practice, I have a file called test.txt. Okay, so this one, test.txt, I have a welcome to Selenium. Some text is present here. So what my program will do is my program will read the text from the text file and print in the console window. Okay, this is my program. So to do this, we have to use file reader class, buffer reader class, and so many things. The special classes we have to use. So don't focus on these things, but focus on the exception type. Because here there are multiple things, will throw multiple type of exceptions. In those cases, how we need to use a throws keyword. That is more important. So now, first of all, import this file reader from java.io and import this buffer reader from java.io. And so required classes we have imported. Now this particular statement, if I put the cursor in the 11th line, so this particular statement will throw some exception. What is that? File not found exception. Okay, so our compiler is intimating us. Before itself, the compiler is our intimating it. So what our compiler is intimating here is, suppose if this file is not available in this particular location, still I am trying to read the data from the file, right? But the file is not available. In case, then this statement will throw some exception. So our compiler is basically forecasting this. Like suppose in future, suppose if the file is not available, you may have some exception. You may get some exception. So before itself, take care of this exception. So our Java compiler is intimating us. Okay. So that's the reason we have to specify like this. So I see that string arguments in string arguments is the same. So the first suggestion it is giving us add throws declaration, and other one is try catch block. So we can include this in using try catch block, or we can use throws keyword. So this time I'm going to use throws keyword. So clicking on throws keyword. So now this statement is able to handle this file not found exception it will throw. So this particular statement will throw file not found exception. And similarly, let's see this one. So this will also throw some exception. What kind of exception it will throw? IO exception it will throw. So again, I will handle this by using add throws keyword. Now what happens? What you have noticed here. So whatever already exception we have added earlier, that exception is gone. But the new exception is added IO exception. But what about file not exception? It is not throwing any exception now. What is the reason behind this? The reason is file not found exception is a part of IO exception. Okay, so IO file not found exception is a subclass of IO exception class. So when I say file not found exception here, it can handle only file not found exception. But when I say IO exception here, it can handle file not found exception and also IO exception, both. So that's the reason, as soon as I have added this IO exception, immediately file not found exception is removed by Java compiler. Because why we should have a duplicate, we don't require, right? So IO exception is able to handle both. In that case, why we should have again file not found exception? Not at all required. So that's the reason Java compiler has removed that exception. Okay, fine. Now we have another type of exception. This is interrupted exception. So this statement will throw interrupted exception. Now we have added this exception, interrupted exception. Okay, now we can see along with the IO exception, another exception is also added here. So IO exception is belongs to this one and this one, and interrupted exception is belongs to thread.string. So now all the exceptions are added at the method level, not the statement level. Okay, so this is another way of handling. Now when I run this code, you will get this output. So this is a statement. These are statements we have created inside the notepad. So now we have read that into printed in the console window. So this is all about throws keyword. So for checked exceptions, most of the times we use only throws keyword because it will show in suggestion here itself, right? So we just click add throws keyword and then it will automatically add throws declaration here. So we don't need to write anything manual here. So that is an advantage of throws keyword. But the limitation is the throws keyword can be used only for checked exceptions. So for unchecked exceptions, we cannot use throws keyword. So that's a more important thing. All right. So these are the types of exceptions, checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. So let me just summarize them. So checked except there are two kinds of exceptions, checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. Checked exceptions are the exceptions which are identified by the compiler and can be handled. Here I'm writing, so can be handled using try catch block and throws keyword and throws keyword. And throws keyword is again method level. Okay, this is another important point which we need to remember. But when you come to the unchecked exceptions are the exceptions which will causing at the runtime. Okay, so here these exceptions can be handled only using try catch block. Only using try catch block. So we cannot use throws keyword. And here try catch is a method, a statement level, and throws keyword is a method level. Try catch is a statement level, throws is a method level. So these are the important things which we need to remember when you come to exception handling. So this is a concept of exception handling in Java. Okay. So please watch this recording if you are not clear about anything else in this particular session, especially. And that's the reason I'm providing the recordings. If you're not clear about something, don't leave and don't ignore this. Okay, don't take it that is a light thing. Okay, so very, very important. Everything, whatever I have covered in Java, which is everything is required. And please watch the recording multiple times. And if still not understood, then let me know. Okay, I will just repeat the same topic. But you don't ignore those topics. So whatever topics I have explained in Java, everything is very, very important. And if you have any number of questions, so please ask me. Okay, don't hesitate to ask any questions. All right, so in the last 10 to 15 minutes every day, I'll try to spend some time to solve your questions, to answer your questions. So please use that particular time. Okay, guys, so this is all about exception handling topics. And now I'll clarify your questions, and two questions you guys have asked. One is how to take the input from the user, how to take input from user. That's the one thing, using how to use a scanner class and all. The other question Madhuri is asked, string args, is this equal to args, this one or not? So this one, right? So you're asking the doubt like this is the one, equal to or not. So I'll just cover these two things now. So please focus. How to take the input from the user. That's the first one. It's very, very simple. At the runtime, if you want to get the input from the user, we have to use a scanner class. Okay. So let me just create one example. So some sample test. Take this main method. Okay. Now in this example, I want to find sum of two numbers. I want to find sum of two numbers, and those two numbers I will pass dynamically at the runtime. I don't want to hardcode those two numbers. I want to take the input from the user. Okay. So what I can do is I will just create a scanner class. Scanner is equal to, create some object called input is equal to new scanner. And inside the scanner we have to pass one input called as system.in. So then import the scanner class. So this is the first step we have to do. Okay. Now we need to get the input from the user. If you want to get the input from the user, we have to say input dot. Suppose if you want to get integer as an input, then you have to use a next int method. Next int. Sorry. Okay. So next int is a method which will take the input from the user. It will take input from the user, and once it is take the input from the user, I will store that value in a number one. Create one variable called num1 and store that one. And similarly, I will also take another input. Let's say this is A and this is B. Okay, two variables. Now again input dot next int. So this will take another input from the user, store that into B. Now I will perform sum of these two numbers. Let's say system.out.println A plus B. Okay. Now that's it. So this particular command input dot next int will take the input from the user, and especially integer input. Okay, it will not allow you decimals again. So if you want to accept decimals, we have to use another method. So next double. So we have another method. I'll show you that. So print ln of A plus B. So now let us execute this code. Run as Java application. Okay, it will open up the console. It's not even opening the console because we need to provide some input as a at runtime, right? So it is not even showing any console here. See here, it is not showing any console. So let me just write some input here. So we have to write some message because as a user I should know what I have to provide, right? So before here I can just write a simple message called system.out.println so that I can see the console window. So here I'll say enter first number, enter first number and semicolon. Enter first number. So this particular statement will print in my console window. Then I will know, okay, how to enter the first number, and this statement will actually read that number and store that into A. Now similarly, I'll write the statement second time. Enter second number, enter second number. Now it will print again one more time in the console window. Then I will enter the second number, and this particular statement will read the second number and store that into variable B. And then it will perform A plus B. Okay. Now let us run this code. Run as Java application. Now we can see. So enter first number. So now I know how to enter the first number. So let me enter 10 here. Again enter. So it is asking enter second number. So now I need to enter the second number. Let's say 20. Now press enter. Now we'll get the output as a 30. So this statement will provide the output. So 10 and 20 will be stored in A and B. Okay, so this is how we need to take the input from the user. So first we need to create the scanner class object called input, and then input dot next int method, which will exactly read the data from the user and store that value in a variable. But why we created this statement? For just appearance. Suppose if you don't write this system.out.println, it will not even open the console window. You don't know where you have to provide those values at the runtime. So that's the reason I have added these statements. Okay. Suppose I want to take the decimal numbers as an input. Then what should we do? Let me comment this. So I'll show you decimal numbers this time and copy the same thing, put it here. Now instead of next int, just change the method. Okay, input dot next double. Okay, this is a method, and this variable should be double type. This variable should be double data type. This variable should be double data type. And same thing we'll do here also. Same thing I'll do here also. And it should be again double. Okay. Now it will perform A plus B. This time we need to provide the decimal number. Now let us run this code one more time. So it is asking first number. Let's say 10.5 decimal number. Enter. It's asking second number and 15.0. Enter. Now we'll get the 25.5 as an output. Okay, so this is how we can also take the decimal numbers. Now I'll show you one more example. So now I want to take the string values at the runtime. So then what you have to do, again I'll copy the same thing. Okay, now the strings I want to take. So enter first string and enter second string. Okay, now instead of next double, we have to use one more method called dot next string. I think next string is not there. We have to use a two string, I guess. Just to hold on. Input dot next, and do we have a string here? Let me just check it. Yeah, so this is the one. Just to say only next. Okay, just say only next. So this is a method we have to use to take the strings from the command line. So input dot next. So this variable should be string type of variable. Okay, this variable should be string type of variable. String A. And similarly here also I will use just input dot next. So this will take string as an input. So input dot next. So this is also string type of variable. So now A and B are the strings. Now when I do A plus B, what this will give an output? It will just concatenate. If I use plus operate between two strings, it will be concatenate. Okay, so let me run this code and see. Run as Java application. Now it is asking enter first string. So here I'll say welcome. This is my first string. Enter. So it is asking second string. Here I will say to Java. Now welcome to. Java is terminated because we have given some space. So space will not be recognized. So we have to give one string. So let me run one more time. Run as Java application. So first string is welcome. Second string is, I'll say Selenium. Plus enter. So now we got welcome Selenium. So both have added. Okay, so this is called string. So we can take integers. So till here this is an integer, taking integer. Okay, so this is a taking integer, or I can write some message here, taking integers as input from user. Okay, and here we are taking decimals as an input from user, and here we are taking strings, okay, strings as an input from user. Okay, so this is how we need to use this command. So are you guys clear now how to use this one? So next int is a method which will take decimal numbers or numbers, normal integers as an input, and the next double will take decimals as an input. Next method will take only strings as an input. Okay, so now, so this is the one question you guys can have asked. Now the next question is, so is this equal to this one? Is exactly equal to this one or not? String args is equal to string args, equal to or not? This is exactly equal. So let me show you one example here. Not only string, you can also create other data types also. This is basically related to array concept. Okay, so let me just create another class and show you. So sample test2, sample test2, take this main method. Now observe this. So you are talking about here is single dimensional. So this is basically single dimensional array. Arg is nothing but a variable. Okay, so normally where you will see this statement in the system.out.println, right? So here in the main method you will see this statement, right? So basically what is this one is, this is a parameter of main method. So in the methods we'll take parameters, right? So similarly main method is also take a default parameter. This is string args. So instead of args you can also put some variable name. You can use any variable name. This is nothing wrong in this. Just by default they have given some name as args. It's representing some argument or variable. You can give anything. You can give x or you can give y, anything in the main method. It will not impact your execution. Okay, that's the one thing you need to observe. This is just a variable. And what kind of variable it is? It is a string array type of variable. This is a string array type of variable. Suppose if you want to define a string array, how we can declare? First we'll specify the data type, and then name of the array and the bracket. So what this meaning? This is a string array, but we haven't specified any size, but this is a string array. And the same thing I can write it this way. First data type and bracket, then variable name. This is also right notation, but you have to give some space here. Okay, just a moment. So we have to give some space. Okay, you already created this variable, right? So that's the reason it's giving error. So this is also right notation. We can put this variable a after the bracket. This is also right notation. The next notation is, you can also give some space here. Okay, this is also right notation. This is also right notation. You can write anyway here. First variable name and then bracket, or first bracket then variable name, or first bracket space a variable name. You can write anyway. So all these notations are exactly the same. Okay, and here they have followed this particular notation. So in the main method they have followed this particular notation. First specified the string, sorry, not this one. So you can also write like this. This is also right. So here you can put the bracket and separate it like this. This is also right notation. So here they have followed this particular notation. So first they have mentioned the data type, bracket, this representing single dimension array, and the variable name. Args is a simple variable name. Okay, so basically this main method is taking a string array as a parameter. So we can pass single variable parameters, or arrays also we can pass as a parameter. So main method by default taking this as a parameter. Okay, these are the different notations. So you can just follow one notation. So normally I follow the first notations whenever I'm working with arrays. And the same notation is applicable for two-dimensional array also. Suppose if the two-dimensional array, I can say string, okay, so string A. So this is a two-dimensional array, right? The same thing I can define like this. So I can just say string A First, before you can put two brackets and you can say A. This is also right notation. Or you can write like this. So string, two brackets and space A. Two brackets, space A. This is also right notation. And the other notation is you can also write like this. Suppose you can say data type string, data type string. First you put one bracket, then A, and then next bracket. So this is also right notation. So you can write different notations. Everything is right. And these are different ways of writing. But normally we have to follow only one notation. Okay, if you see these many notations, you will be confused. So just practice only one notation, whichever is you like. Okay, so normally I will follow this one or this one if it is a two-dimensional. Okay, Madhuri, are you clear now? So what is the difference between this one and this one? So both are same. Both are same, but there are different different aspects or different variations or different ways we can create a array. That's only the difference. Okay, so everything is same. All right, guys. So that's all for today's session. So I'll just stop the today's session, and the next class will be on Monday. And Monday also I will take the Java session. There is one more hash map and array list. We have few more topics we have in Java. So Monday I'll take those two topics, and then we'll finish the Java, and then we'll start Selenium. So in the weekend, so please practice all the examples, whatever I have shown you in the sessions. Okay, so complete all the assignments if there is any pending things, and make sure everything should be understandable. Okay, you should be able to understand. That's the only thing I'm expecting from you guys. Okay, so I'll just stop the session today. If you have any queries, now you can ask me now. All right, so today we are going to learn about one more important concept from Java, and that is array list and hash map, and also we'll see about JDBC concept, how we can interact with the databases through Java. All right, now the first topic today is array list, and then we'll discuss about hash map. So these are all called collections in Java. So normally in the beginning days, I've told you there are two kinds of data types we have in Java, right? So one is primitive data types, one is a primitive, and the other one is derived data types. So what is the difference between these two data types? When you come to the primitive data types, we call integer as a primitive data type, double is a primitive data type, and boolean is another primitive data type, char is a bulletin, another primitive data types, right? These are all primitive data types. And why we call them as a primitive data types? Because these are basic data types. These are not classes, basically. These are just keywords. And when you come to the derived data types in under this one, so we have a string. String is also comes under derived, and array list. Array list comes under the derived, and also hash map. These are also comes under the derived data types. So derived data types basically can store some objects also along with the normal data types. It can also store some kind of objects, and these are all basically classes, predefined classes in Java, and we can also use them as data types. So that's the reason we call them as a derived data types, right? So string we already seen. So if you want to create a variable as a string, we can store the strings. Now we'll see today array list and hash map. Array list and hash map. These are also called as collections. These are the data types also called as a collections in Java. Now array list and hash map is the most popularly used collections in Java. And along with this, we have a set and we have a list. There are so many collection types we have in Java, and most of the times we use array list and hash map. Okay. So today we'll discuss about how to use this hash map and how to use this array list also. Okay. Now, so before discussing the array list, this is almost similar to arrays concept, because based upon the limitations we face in array, the array list came into the picture. So array list will overcome the limitations from array. Okay. So can anyone tell what are the limitations we have in array? Normal array. If I create an array variable, okay, so what are the limitations we can notice in array concept? Can anyone tell? So there are two limitations we have in array. There are two limitations we have, and to overcome these two limitations, we have array list came into picture. So array list is overcome those two limitations from array.
So the first limitation in arrays, I think you guys noticed, when I create an array, if I specify the size of an array, the size is fixed, right? So we cannot store more than those elements. So if you want to steal more elements, we have to create the dynamic array. But once we specified the size of an array, let's say if I create an array variable, let's say int a is equal to new int of 5. So this is the array variable, right? So in this array, I can store only 5 values. I cannot store more than 5 values, right? So that's the one limitation. So this is fixed in size. Fixed size is one limitation. And the other limitation is, just a moment. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Hello, can you guys hear me now? Okay, fine. All right, so now this is just array variable I have just created. Okay, so which contains 5. So that means I can store only 5 values, not more than that. So this is fixed size, right? Now this is the one limitation we have in array. Now the other limitation is we can store only same kind of elements, right? We can store, or we cannot store different type of elements or different type of values. Suppose if the array type is integer, we can store only integers, right? If an array is a string type, and then we can store only integer values. If an array type is a double, and then we can store only double values, decimal numbers. But multiple data type of values we cannot store in the normal array. So these are the two limitations we have in this array. All right. So to overcome these two limitations, we have a special data structure or collection called as an array list. So by using array list, we can overcome these two problems. So it is not fixed in size. We can store any number of elements, and those elements or those values can be any data type, can be any data types. So that's how we can overcome the problem from the arrays. So array list can have any number of elements. This is not fixed in size. We can store any number of values, and we can also store different data type values. So that is an advantage of array list. Now we'll see how we can work with this array list. Let me just give you one example now. So in the array list, we can perform different kinds of activities. So let me just list out what are all operations we can do in the array list. So in the array list, we can declare an array list. How to declare an array list, we will see now. And then once you declare array list, how to add the elements or values to the array list. And then how we can find size of an array list. That means how many values we have stored in the array list. We can also find the size. And suppose if you want to remove the elements or remove the values from the array list, how we can remove them, and insert the new element. Suppose already 5 elements are already stored in the array list. Suppose I want to store one more element in the array list. So how we can add it, and how we can read all the values from array list. So these are the different operations we can do on the array list. Now we'll see one by one. Now let me just go to Eclipse, and here this is our project currently working. Now I'll create a new package for today. Just hold up. So today package is day 10. Right, so now here I will create a new class. I will name it as array list demo, and here I'm just taking the main method, then finish it. All right, so now how we can declare array list? Let's see one by one. All operations I will show one by one. So let me just copy it here. Okay, so these are the different operations we can perform on the array list. Now let's see one by one. So how to declare an array list? So if you want to create an array list, how we can create an array list? So we can create an array list by specifying the array list class. So array, this is how we need to specify. So array list is a predefined class in Java. So we have to start with the uppercase letter. So array list, L is again uppercase letter. Array list, and we have to specify some variable name. It's an object. is equal to new array list. So array list is a predefined class in Java, so that we have to create an object for array list. So import this array list from java.util. This is a package which contains the array list. Now I have created one list variable, and the type of variable is an array list. So as I said, we can store multiple values in this array list and multiple data types. There is no size limit here. We can store any number of elements, and whatever data type of element we can store, we can still store that. Okay, there is no restriction to store like same kind of elements like array. So this is how we can just declare an array list. So array list is equal to new array list. So this is a part of declaration. So once we declare this array list, and as I said, we can store any type of values, right? So let's see how to add elements or values to the array list. The second thing, so if you want to add values to this array list, we have to use a method called add. So let me just take this variable, and dot add is a method. Just hold on. Yeah. So I'm saying how to add elements or values to the array list. So list object, that is array list object, dot add is a method, dot add. And here we need to specify the value based upon the data. You can specify any data type of value. So you can say string, and you can say integer, or you can say double, anything. So first of all, I'll store a string value. Let's say welcome. And similarly, I can add more values. List dot add, and here I'll just say integer value. Let's say 10. This is an integer, and list dot add, and here I will say double. Let's say 10.5. This is a decimal number. Similarly, list dot add, and here you can say boolean value. Okay, so you can just store any type of value inside the array list. Now list is representing the array list, and which contains how many values we have? 4 values we have. Okay, you can also store characters. So list dot add, and here in the single quotations, characters always should include in the single quotations. So in the single quotation, I'll just say a, some character. Okay, now I have stored 5 different categories of values in the same array list variable, right? Now let's see, this is how we need to add elements by using add method. Okay, and now suppose if I added some values here, then I want to find out what is the size of array list. So how many values I have added, if you want to find out. So how we can do that? Find the size of array list. How to find the size of array list? So very simple. Let's say list is a variable, array list variable, dot, there is a method called size. So this will give you how many values we have stored in the array list. Now we have to print this value. List.size method will return how many values we have stored in the array list. Now system.out.println and list.size. So this will give you how many values we have stored in the array list. Now I'm running the code, Java application. Now I can see here, okay, something went wrong here, syntax error. So where we have done syntax error, so this is a list variable. Let me add it one more time. list dot add, and here I can say some string variable, right, and semicolon, and here we missed the semicolon, sorry. Okay, this is a mistake. All right, so now let's run this code one more time. Okay, so now we can see here it is written 5 here. So that means it returns 5 means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values we have stored. Suppose I want to print all the list of values in my console. I want to print all the list of values in my console. Then how we can print it? So we can just print all the values like this. We can just say system.out.println. Just specify the array list name directly here. Okay, so direct value, we can just variable name we have to directly specify here. So this will print all the values. Just run as Java application. Now you can see all the values whatever we have inserted into list array list, and it is printed one by one. Alright, suppose if you want to extract only specific value, or if you want to extract only specific value, not all the values. And then we have to specify the index number. Okay, by default it will not maintain any index, but still if you want to extract any value, we need to specify the position in which, from which element we have to extract. Okay, so index will always start from 0 here. Okay, so let me extract a value from the array list. So if you want to get the specific value, we have to use a method called list.get. So this is a method we have to use. Get is a method which will capture the exact value from based upon the index value. And here if I say 2, what is the value it will return? So index will start from 0. So welcome is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. So it should return 10.5. Now put that into system.out.println list.get of 2. Now as per our expectation, it should return 10.5. Alright, so this is a first 0 element, first element, and this is the second element. Now let's run this code. Now it returns 10.5 as an output. So if you want to extract all the values, we can directly print this list value. And if you want to extract specific value, and then just use a get method. So get method is used to capture the specific value from the array list. Specific value from the array list. Let me write here. Print or capture specific value from array list. Alright. So now suppose currently I have 5 elements. Default I have added 5 elements. And I want to insert some element in this in the middle of these values. So currently these are the values currently I have. This is a 0 position, this is a first, second, third, and fourth position, right? Total 5 values I have. So somewhere in that middle, I want to insert a new value. Somewhere in the middle, I want to insert a new value. At the end of the list, I can add still. Suppose list.add. If I use list.add method, that by default will be added that value in the end to the end of this list by default. But I want to add a new value in the middle of these values somewhere. Okay, so how we can insert that values in array list? So this is the one I will show you. So this is the one. Insert a new element in the middle of the array list. How we can insert this? So to do this, we have a method called list dot. Again, we have to use the same method called add. And add you can use in two different ways. Suppose if I use only add, right? If I specify some value here, just specify only add here. Okay, let's say Selenium, some text I have specified. Now what happens is this value will be added at the end of the list. So like after welcome 10, after completion of this, at the end of the list, this value will be added. But now I want to add it in the middle of this list somewhere. And then how we can specify? Suppose for example, I want to add this value between welcome and 10. So what is the position here? Welcome is a 0 position and the second position. So 0 position, first position. So between welcome 10 means it is a first position. So the first position I want to add this. Now what we need to do is we need to specify the index number first, comma, and then value. So now this value will go and insert in the first position and rest of the values will be moved to the next positions. But still the other values will be preserved. So other values will not be gone. So it's still there. Only thing is in the first position, the new value will be inserted and rest of the values will be moved to the next position. Okay. Now after adding this element again, I will print the complete list. So the same statement I can use here. So here I will just write list of values after inserting a new value. After inserting the new value. Okay, I'm just appended by the list. So here initial list. Here we are printing the initial list. Or I can also write some meaningful message here. So list of values. Let's say initial list of values in array list. Okay, so currently whatever values we have inserted in the array list, it will print here. And here list of values after inserting a new value in the array list, it will print here. Now let's see now. So run as Java application. Alright, so now we can see here initially we have 5 elements. So these are the 5 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 10.5 is a just we have get the value here. Second position it's printed here. And now after insertion of this value at the first position, now we can see the list of values. So in this first position, first means second position because index will start from 0. So now welcome is 0, Selenium is a 1, and rest of the values still present and it is moved to the next position. Okay, so if you want to insert a new value in the middle of these values, and then you can just use same method, add method, but we have to specify the index, and then this value will go and insert it in the middle of this list. And if I don't specify the index, then the same value will be added at the end of the list. Okay, the functionality is little different if you provide index and if you're not providing index. Alright, so now we have seen how we can declare an array, how we can add the values into array, how we can find the size of array list. Sorry, this is all array list. Okay, and if you want to capture a specific value from array list, we can capture by using get method. And also we have seen how to insert a new value in the middle of the list. Now I'll show you how we can remove the value from the array list. There are so many values we have. Now I want to remove some of them. So currently the latest array list contains these values. Totally 6 values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 values currently I have. Now I want to remove one of these values. So I want to just remove 10.5 or somewhere. Oh yeah, I want to remove this 10.5. Okay, how we can remove this element from the array list? So if you want to remove this, just say list.remove, list.remove, and here we need to just specify the index value. Now what is the index number of 10.5? So this is 0, 1, 2, and 3. So when I say 3 here, this will actually remove from the third element will be removed from this array list. Now after removing this, I will again print the complete list. So this command will remove the value or remove, you can say element or value from array list. But only thing is we need to specify the index number based on index value. So here again index start from 0. Index start from 0, and here also index value will start from 0. Here also index value start from 0. In array list, index is always start from 0. Now once we remove this element, and then again I'll print the complete list of array list. So list of values after removing the value, after remove. Okay, so now again I'm printing the list. Now we can see that. So just run as Java application. Okay, now we can see here. So here after insertion of new values, we have total 6 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now among those 6 values, I have just removed 10.5. Now in the latest list, we don't have that value, right? So 10.5 is completely removed from the array list. So this is how we can just do certain operations on the array list. And when I print this array list, just like by using this variable, it is printing all the values in the square bracket. It's a complete, we are getting a list of values. So it's like a set, okay? But I want to extract each and every value independently. So we use get method previously. Get method also can extract only one value from that list, right? But I want to extract each individual value separately. I want to extract each and individual values separately, and then I want to print them in my console window. So how we can extract them? So I can just write one for loop here. So by using for loop, I can extract one by one. So I will use enhanced for loop to read all the values. Now you guys should answer this. So here this is array list, right? So which contains some value. So what is the variable name of array list? List, right? So list is representing the array list. Now from this array list, so I want to read each and individual value. I want to store some in some variable. Let us say something called I. Okay. Now what kind of variable it should be? Suppose a list contains all integer values, right? If I want to read one by one, I we can define with the integer. Suppose list contains all the string values. If you want to store each and individual value in the I can mention I as a string. But now the list contains a different type of elements. We have a string, we have a boolean, we have a character, we have a number, right? But what kind of variable it should be? How we can define this variable? And this variable should able to hold all kinds of data types, not only not only single data type, it should able to hold multiple data types. But what could be the type of this variable? So in Java, if you want to declare a variable, if you want to store multiple types, if you want to like make this variable should able to hold multiple values, multiple data type of values, then you have to define that variable as an object variable. So in Java, object itself is a class. So this is not object in object-oriented programming we discussed about class and object, right? And this is not that kind of object. This is a class, predefined class in Java. Okay, the name itself is like that, but this is a lot of difference. The class and object is completely different, right? In object-oriented programming, we discuss the class and object. Now here the name is object, but basically this is a class, predefined class in Java. So when I create a variable of type is object, then that particular variable can hold any data type value. It can hold string, it can hold number, decimal, anything. Okay. So now a list, array list contains multiple data type of values. So I need to read each and every one, and I need to store this I. And from the I can just print that I value here. System dot println, I can just say print I here. Okay, that's it. Now this particular loop will read each and every value from this array list, and it will print all these values. So now currently this is array list, right? So this is array list, and which contains multiple values. So here we have a welcome, we have a Selenium, we have a 10, and so on. So the first value from the list will be stored in I, and now here we are printing as a welcome. That's the first value, and it will go and check is there any next value is available or not. If another value is present, and then capture this value and again store into the I. Now again it will print. Again it will go and verify the next value. If it is exist, then it capture this and store that into I. Now again we have printed. So this loop will repeat till the last element. So at the end it will go and fetch the element. If the element is not found or value is not found here, then for loop will be exited. So this is how the classic for loop. This is the enhanced for loop. Okay, especially this enhanced for loop is used for arrays, array list, hash map, and these kind of collections. Okay. All right. So now let's run this code, and how it will print all the values. We'll see one by one. Right. So now you can see here. These are the values we are getting one by one. So welcome, Selenium 10, true, and A. Okay. So same values, but it is now we are getting individual values, not as a complete set. But when you print this list, what happens? It will print the complete list. And when you use get method, it can extract only one value at a time from the array list. But if you want to extract all the values independently, then we have to write one for loop, and then we can extract it. Okay. So this is how we can work with the array list. Array list is one of the collection in Java. And if you want to store n number of values and which are different data type, then we can go and use array list concept. Okay, so now we have seen how to declare array list, how to add elements by using add method, and how to find the size of array list by using size method, then how to remove the elements by using remove method, and inserting a new element by using again add method with index value, and read values from array list by using enhanced for loop. Okay, so these are the list of operations we can do on array list. This is a simple example for array list. Okay, so guys, are you clear? Array list concept. So we have seen all the operations. All right, so now let us move on to the next type. Others, please confirm on the chat window if you are clear. This is very simple concept. This is just enhancement of array. Array is not a data structure, so array list is a data structure. Okay, all right. Now let's move on to the hash map. Hash map is also another kind of data structure, but we can store a different kind of data in the hash map. I'll show you where we have to go and use hash map. So for example, I have data like this. Let me just show you. I have some employee data like this. Okay, so I have some employee data like this. Employee name, sorry, employee number and employee name. So employee number, let's say 101, 102, 103. This is employee numbers, and corresponding name will be there. Let's say XYZ or John or David and so on. So this is my data. So I want to store this complete data in a variable. So how it is possible? So this is not possible by using any normal types like array or array list, because here the data is different. So because the combination of this comes under one data set. This is one data set, employee number corresponding e-name, and this is another data set. This is another data set. So combinedly we can call it one data or one value. Okay, so here EMP number is not a different value, EMP name is not a different value. So combinedly we can call them as one data set or one value. So if you want to store this kind of data, we have to go and use hash map. So we need to understand terminology here. In hash map, here EMP number is a unique value, right? Every employee is having a unique value. So EMP number is a unique value. This is called as a key. This is called as a key. So 101, 102, 103, these are all keys. And here EMP names can be repeated or it can be duplicated. So different employees are having same name, right? And these values can be duplicated. So this is called as a value. Okay, key and the value. So the combination of key and the value called as a one data set, or we can also call it as a pair. One pair, one key and the value. This combinedly we can call as a one pair. One pair. So like this, we can store multiple pairs in my hash map. All pairs can be stored in my hash map. So in hash map, we have to store the data in the form of key and the value pairs. Okay, we cannot store a single value. We want to store some value in the hash map, we have to store key along with the value. So key is very, very important because the key is a value. Key is uniquely identifying the complete record. So key and the value called as a pair. Okay, so hash map, we can store the data in the form of key and values. The combination of key and value called as a one pair. So like this, we can store any number of pairs in the hash map. And one more thing is, when you create your hash map, when you are creating your hash map, when you're declaring your hash map, you must specify what is the data type of key and what's the data type of value. And based upon the data types you mentioned, only that kind of data you can store in the hash map. Okay, so that's a restriction, important point which we need to remember. Now, just like an array list, in the hash map also we can perform certain kind of activities. Now I'll show you what are all different activities we can do on the hash map. So in the hash map, we can just do declaring hash map. How to declare a hash map, I will show you, and how to add the elements to hash map. Here elements is nothing but a pairs. Okay, pair key and the value combinedly we can call as a one element. So we should not tell like elements. How to add pairs, we can say pairs. Add pairs to hash map, and how to remove the element from hash map. So this is also pair or pairs from hash map, and read pair from hash map. How to read the key and values. So these are the four operations we can perform on the hash map. Okay, but some of the operations are not possible here. So here we can declare the hash map, we can adding so many pairs, and we can remove the pairs, and we can read the pairs, but we cannot insert the pairs in the middle of the list. Okay, we cannot insert the pair, just like array list we cannot insert in the middle, but we can add new pairs at the end of the hash map, and we can remove the pairs, whatever pairs we required, by specifying the key value, but we cannot insert any pair in the middle of the hash map. Okay, now let's see how we can perform these actions by using hash map. Now I'll go to one more example here, new class, and here I will name it as hash map and demo. And don't give the hash map as a class name, because hash map itself is a predefined class in Java. So some people will say here, while creating your new class, people will give you only hash map here. So it will give you an error because hash map class is already there in Java. Okay, so that's the reason, give something else like hash map demo, something like this, and then take the main method, then finish. So the first operation, I'll show you how to declare an hash map. Let me show you one by one. So first, how to declare an hash map. So if you want to declare an hash map, we have to follow certain syntax here. As I said before, hash map contains the keys and their values, and we must specify the type of key and the type of value. So we have to say hash map hm is equal to new hash map. Okay, and this is not enough, so we have to specify the type. So where we have to specify the type is here, we have to specify the type. So before the variable is created, just we need to add one angular brackets, and here what is the type of a key? So that is integer. I'll say I'm going to store employee data, so employee number and employee name. So here I will just say integer. So this is not int, we should not use int here. Okay, we have to use the parent class of int. So integer is again predefined class in Java. So integer is a type of key, and what is the type of value? String. So emp names always in the string format, right? So string. And same thing we have to specify again here, a new hash map, and before starting the bracket we have to specify the same thing here. So this is the declaration, and these values you have to change according to your data. Okay, so all employees numbers will be integer. So the first representing the type of a key, and the second type is representing the type of the value. Okay, now we need to import this hash map from again java.util package. Now click on this. Now it will import java.util, right? Now we need to work with this particular hash map object. So once the declaration is done, this is called declaration. This is called declaration. So once we declare this hash map, then we have to add all the pairs to hash map. So pair is nothing but key and the value combination. So now I'm adding some pairs to your hash map. So here adding values, or we can say pairs to hash map. So how we can add the pairs to hash map? So here we say we have a method called, so in array list we have a add method, right? So here we have a method called put. Here we have to use a put method, and in put method we have to specify the key and the value both. Now let's say 101 is my key. For that employee number I will just add some name of the employee. Let's say John is an employee name. This is one pair, and similarly I can also add more number of pairs. Let's say hm dot put 102 comma, and we'll say here is David. He is another guy. Okay, it's not put all, it's a put. Now hm dot again put 103 comma, and here I will just say Smith. He is another employee. So similarly I will also add a few more. hm dot, I'll just copy and change the value. Just a second. Okay, so 102, 103, 104, 105. So here is John and David. Smith, I'll just say he's Scott. Okay, and here is King. Some different names I have given. So this is how we need to add all the key pairs, key and the value. Combinedly we can call as a pairs to your hash map. So like this we can add any number of pairs. There is no limit for this. Okay, you can add any number of pairs. Now if you want to print all these values or all the pairs in the form of a list, so how we can get, or how we can print them? So if you want to print all of them in the console window, you can just write system dot out dot, just like how we have printed array list. Similar way we have to specify the hm object. Hm is an object, so hm contains all these values. Now this will print all the key value pairs like this. So here curly braces are representing the hash map. So here this is a key and the value. This is one data, and this is another key and another value. This is another set of data. And again 103 Smith, 104 Scott, and 105 is Kim. So it is combinedly store this data. Okay, so every value is representing with unique key value. So keys are always unique, but these names can be duplicated, but always key should be unique. Okay, so if you want to print all the list of values, we can just print like this. And now suppose I want to remove one of the pair in this list. I want to remove one of the pair. So how we can remove that? Remove a pair from hash map. So how to remove the pair from the hash map? It's very simple. Just specify the HM object dot, and the method is remove. And here we need to specify the key, and based upon the key, the complete record will be removed. So for example, I want to remove Smith. Okay, his key is 103, right? So just specify the key here. Here we don't have index concept. Okay, just we need to work based upon the keys only. So key number. So when I say 103 is a key, and it will completely remove the entire record. Now after removing 103, again I'll try to print the new list here one more time. This is a new list, or we can say new page after deletion. Now let's run this, and now I can see in the second list we don't have 103. So based upon the key value, based upon the key, we can just remove the complete pair. Okay, so this is one thing we can do it. So we have seen how to declare a hash map, how to add pairs by using put method, and how to remove the pair, specific pair from the hash map. We cannot remove all of them at once, so we have to just remove one by one. And then how to read hash map, read pair from hash map. Here if you want to print all the list of pairs in the hash map, you can just specify the HM. Okay, but still if you want to read them individually, like key and the value separately, key and the value, key and value, if you want to read them individually, then we have to again write one enhanced for loop to read individual pairs. And now I'll write one more loop statement to read pairs from hash map by using for each loop. Now here we need to understand a few technical terms. So here we have a special classes. Let me just show you here. Just a minute. In the for loop we have to use some special terminology. I'll tell you now. So this is our data, right? So this is our data. So here I have stored all the keys. This is EMP number is a key, and these are all different values I have stored, or keys and values. Let's say 101, 102, and so on, and here John, and so on. So here we need to understand one kind of terminology here. So here, as per hash map, so as I said, pair or key and the value pair, that is a normal terminology. Okay, but if you want to read these values individually, we have to use a different terminology. So here, this particular part we call as a pair, right? Pair, and this pair is representing by using entry set. We can call as an entry set. Entry set, this is also called as an entry set. The complete pair is called as a one entry set. Okay, this is called entry set. So this completely we call as entry set, and one entry if I remove from this, or if you get one entry, so that is called as an entry. This one entry. So entry set is nothing but all pairs. So all pairs combinedly we can call as a one entry set. Okay, all pairs combinedly we can call as an entry set. Now if you remove if you get each and every pair individually, that is called as an entry set. Remember, sorry, only entry. This is entry, here it's entry set. So just remember, don't confuse. Entry set is nothing but all the records, all the pairs. Entry is nothing but one pair. Okay, entry set is nothing but all the pairs. Entry is nothing but one pair. Okay, any confusion, anyone here? So entry set is nothing but all the pairs in a hash map. Entry is nothing but one pair in the hash map. Okay, now so we have to get all the entries set into one variable, and we need to extract each and every entry from the entry set. Okay, now let's go to implement one for each loop. Now here, as I said, the complete pairs called as an entry set. So entry set is nothing but all the pairs. Now here I will just say hm dot entry set. So there is a method called entry set. So what this method will do, hm dot entry set means all pairs, right? All pairs. Now from this entry set, we need to extract one by one entry, and I want to store that into one variable. Let's say I will create one variable called m here. Now observe this, hm dot entry set. What this means, entry set is nothing but all the pairs. Now here I have specified only one variable. Now how this for loop will execute is, from the entire entry set, first it will get one entry, and store that into M. Now M is representing the entry, right? So we have to define this as a map dot entry type. It is little confusion, but please focus on this. Map dot entry type. So this variable must be map dot entry type. Entry. I'll just say map dot entry. That's it. This is the variable. So again, I'll repeat. So entry set is nothing but all the pairs. Okay. Entry nothing but one pair. So from the HM, I'm capturing all the entry sets and one by one. So each individual entry set will be stored in M. So what type of M it is now? It is a map dot entry type. So if you want to store this M, if you want to store one entry set in M, okay, one entry in M, so that should be entry type. So as I said again, all entry set, all pairs are called entry set, and the entry set contains multiple entries. So from this entry set, it will read one by one entry. So that will be stored in M. So M is representing one entry. Okay, entry is nothing but again M is contains a key and the value pair. Key and the value pair. Okay. Now from this entry, so what it contains? M contains key and the value both. Now I need to separate them. So when I say M dot get key, when I use M dot get key, this will return the key value. And when I say M dot get value, it will return the value of the key. Okay, observe this. Entry set contains multiple pairs or multiple sets. So now one entry set come and store in M. So one entry set is nothing but key and the value pair, right? So now we need to extract the key and value by using different methods, by using get key and get value from the same variable. Okay, now I will print them in the same statement here. System dot out dot println, and I will put this statement here, and I'll give some space here, and followed by M dot get value. And again, I'm just appending here. That means I'm just concatenation. So I want to print key and the value side by side. Okay, by giving some space here. That's it. So now what happens is here, first time, let me just draw a small picture, then you can easily understand. This is my hash map. Okay, so which contains multiple entries. So this is completely entry set. So this is one value, second, third, and fourth, right? So first it will capture key and value. So from entry set to entry. So now entry contains one key and their value. Now from the M, I am capturing the get key. By using get key and get value, I am capturing the key and the value separately from HM. After that, it will go and get another pair or another set. Now again store that into M. Now again I'm capturing the key and the value separately. And it will go and third record. It will capture it. Again I'm capturing the get key and get value separately. Okay. So this is how this loop will repeat till end of the pair. Once it is completed all the pairs, now this loop will be exited. Now let me just run this code. You can observe this just from a Java application. Now we can see this is an output we are getting from this particular for loop. So here the key and the value separately we are getting here. Right. So instead of getting all of them in the one list, now we are reading each individual key and the value separately. Okay. So that's the reason. So here we have to use special classes. hm.entrySet method, which will capture the one by one entry sets. And from this entry set, we have to store each and every set we have to store in M. That should be map.entry type. And from this M, we have to get the value and pair by using get key and the get value. Key and the value. So these are the methods which we need to remember when you work with the hash map. Okay. So these are the new methods which we have to use, especially for hash map, because we have a combination of values, not a single value, right? So that's the reason. And here M is a variable of type is map.entry type. So M should able to hold key and the value, both the values. So that's the reason we have to specify this as map.entry type. Okay. Now again, once it get a key and the value, then we have extracting them separately by using get key method and get value method. Okay. So this is the output we are getting from the statement. All right. So now one more time I'll run this. Now we are getting the same output. So this is how we need to work with the hash map. So are you guys clear on this or any confusion anywhere? So this is a simple method we have to use. Entry set will capture all the hash map records and it will read one by one into M, and from the M we have to capture the get key and the get value. That's it. Okay. So this is how we need to work with the hash map. Okay. So Sailaja, are you clear? So hash map is nothing but a combination of key and the value. Key and the value called as a one pair or one entry. Okay. Multiple pairs are called as a entry sets. Okay, so this is a new terminology we have to use in hash map. So these are two different kinds of collections which are very useful even in Selenium also. So I'll just again repeat this concept when you are talking about Selenium in the coming sessions. For now, just practice, so this much is enough. Okay, and in hash map array list we can do a lot of things, and there are so many examples we can practice, but we don't require that much in depth of concept, because if you go as a developer, so we need to go and dig into that, but we don't require that much stuff from here. Okay, just we need to know what is hash map, how to declare it, how to store the elements, how to read the elements, how to remove the elements. So this is enough. Okay, so now with this we have done with the array list and hash map. Now I'm going to show you one more important topic, that is JDBC. Okay, JDBC, Java Database Connectivity. And this is very important topic. This is the last topic in Java. Java Database Connectivity. So this is another feature of Java, so by which we can connect to the database and we can read the data from the tables, and we can write the data into the tables. We can update, delete, all kinds of actions we can do by using JDBC. And people who are not having any SQL or database background, this is completely new for you. Okay, but I'll try to go from the scratch. But if you're already aware of what is database and SQL and everything, that is fine. Okay, no issues. Now let me just talk about basic thing about what is database, because before directly jump into the JDBC, we need to just understand few things about what is database, what is SQL, what database contains, how to use this SQL, what are the different commands we have. So those things we should know as a prerequisite. Okay, now for example, if you go for any web-based or any kind of application, any software, so normally there are two layers. Okay, so the first one is called front-end layer. So front-end layer. So front-end is nothing but the user will always interact with the front-end. Like the browser, you will specify some URL or the link, and you will see all the information here, right? So this is the user is always interact with the front-end layer. This is called as a front-end. And what user can do through front-end? Sometimes he will submit some data. Sometimes he will retrieve the data. Sometimes he will update the data. Sometimes he will delete the data, right? So these are the different operations are doing every time by the user, right? But where exactly this data is storing? Application cannot store any data. Okay, application just will give you the UI part, and user can interact with the application. But actually, where the data will be stored? The data is exactly stored in the backend servers. Okay, this is called as another layer called as a backend, and this is also called as a database. This is called as database. So what is a database here? Database is a area or location, and the exact data will be stored in the database. Database is a storage area. We can simply say it is a storage location or storage area. So in this area, actual data will be stored, and applications always talk to the database, always communicate with the database. But user doesn't know what is happening in the backend. But as a user point of view, I can just do the transactions only, right? So whenever you are working with some banking applications and portals, you may notice these kind of transactions. So but actually where the data is present here, where the data is going, so the data is exactly present in the backend server, that is called as a database. So but how the data is stored in the database? So database contains different type of tables, so in these tables the data exactly will be stored, like employee table or department table or something like this. So based upon your application, corresponding tables will be created in the database, and your data will go and store in these particular tables. Okay, and whenever you're retrieving the data or whenever you want to get your details, again it will go to the database, request the database and get the data, and show that into the show to the user. In the application you can see the data. Okay, so application will always interact with the database. So database is nothing but a storage area where exactly the data will be stored in the tabular format, in table format. Okay, now suppose, and here front end developers are different, back end developers are different, there are different people will work on different layers, so one guy cannot do all these things. Okay, back end database engineers, database administrators, a database developer, these are all different roles we have, and front end application developers are different. So now when you talk about only this particular database, and database is a storage area and where exactly data will be stored in the form of tables. But who will create this database? Who will create these tables? They will create these tables, right? So, like, what are the different examples of database? Like Oracle is one example of database software, and SQL Server is one of the database software, and DBT is another database software. So there are n number of databases are available in the market. So they will install these databases software in their servers, backend servers, and they can create the number of tables in the particular database. But if you want to do all these things, right? So there are certain people should be available. They should know how to interact with the database, how to create the table, how to insert the data, how to update the data, right? So to do these things, we should know the language called as a SQL, structure query language. So if you want to communicate with the database as a user, if you want to communicate with the database, we need a language called as a SQL language. So by using this SQL language, structure query language, we can communicate with the database. We can communicate with the database. Okay. Now, what we will do while communicating with the database means we can create the tables, we can insert the data in the tables, we can update the data, we can delete the data, we can delete the tables. So all these things we can do that. So if you want to do these transaction or these kind of operations, we need to know the SQL. This is again a database language. SQL is a database language. So if you know SQL, this is a basic SQL, then you can work with any kind of database. Oracle SQL is same, SQL Server, DB2, almost every database can understand the same SQL commands. Okay, this is the core language across all the databases. But small syntactical differences will be there, but almost 90% is same for all the databases. Okay, so as a tester also you need to know the SQL, very important. So you need to have the basic knowledge on SQL. What is SQL? What are the different commands available? So again, SQL contains multiple type of commands like data definition language command DDL, and data manipulation language like DML commands, data control language DCL, TCL, transaction control language. So again, SQL is divided into multiple categories, and each and every category there are so many commands we have. Like DDL means create, alter, drop, and DML means insert, update, delete. So these are all different commands which fall under these categories. Okay, so if you know these commands, how to use this command, then we can interact with the database, we can perform all kinds of activities, we can create the tables, we can insert the data, update, delete, all the operations we can perform if you know the SQL part. Okay, so now forget about this front end application for now, for some time. I'm just focusing on the database part. Okay, now in the real time, how it will be happen is, suppose if you want to connect to the database, so your application is different, your database is different, right? So as a testing point of view, if you want to test the database, what you will do is, you have an application here, right? So your user is always testing this application. You have some test scenario like this, you have to provide all the data, and you need to check whether this data is submitting or not properly. When you click on the submit button here, okay, so you need to get some acknowledgement, okay, data is submitted properly. So how we can test this scenario? If you want to test this scenario, you will enter all kinds of data here, you will click on the submit and check the acknowledgement message. But even though sometimes you will get proper acknowledgement, it is not 100% testing. But actually we need to verify the data, like whatever data you are inserted or submitted from here application, whether it is storing in the database table properly or not. Okay, in the table, the new record is inserted, whatever you have done from the front end, the new record is inserted in the table or not. So that you have to verify, and then it will complete testing, then it will become complete testing. So to do that, as a user, what I should do, I have to perform certain transaction here, submit the data, and now you need to log into the database. You need to connect to the database by using some tools. So in the real time, normally these database servers will be there in the remote machines. Normally they will be installed on Linux and Unix servers. So all the databases most of the times will be there in the Linux or Unix servers. They are not on the Windows server. So these servers, you cannot directly access these machines. Okay, so they will, administrator will provide you some connection details, like what is the host name, port number, username, password. So those details they will provide you. And in your local system, this is your Windows system, let us say this is your Windows operating system. Now from your local system, local laptop, you have to connect to the remote database that is installed on your remote server by using connection details. Okay, now once you connected to the remote machine from your local system, then you can easily access all the tables, you can query the tables, you can get the data, everything you can do from your local system once you connected to the database. Okay, so but how we will connect to the database? You have the connection details, the connection details in the sense the machine name or port number, username, password, these are all things will be part of your connection details. So you know the connection details of database, but how to connect to this database by using these details? You need some softwares in your system. So that software is called as a database client software. It's called database client. So even database software is categorized in two, one is client and server. So you have to install your database client software in your local system. Through this client software, you can connect to the database server. This is called server software. This is called as a database server. This is called database server. This is called database client. So through this client only, you can connect to the database server. You can extract the data. You can do whatever you want. So there are two components will be there in the database. One is database server. The other one is database client. So normally if I use Oracle, right? So Oracle is installed in the local remote server. Now if you want to connect to this Oracle database, you need to install Oracle client. So that could be the SQL plus and it could be SQL developer. So there are multiple clients are available. These are all client software. So client software in the sense it will provide some kind of UI where you can type all the commands, you can connect to the database, all the stuff you can do from your local system. Okay, so this is called as a database client. So database contains two components, one is database server, the other one is database client. Okay, application is different, but as a user this is how we need to do. So when you perform the transaction here, immediately you need to connect to the database and query the table, check whether this data is exactly updated in the table or not, inserted or not. So this is a complete end-to-end testing of database. Okay, now I will show you now what is this database. I already have Oracle database installed in my system. So through this client, how we can connect to this Oracle database, how we can query the tables and how we can get the data and all. We'll see very basic whatever is required here. But this is a huge concept. Okay, so in these sessions I cannot cover everything, but whatever is required for only JDBC, only that portion I am going to cover. Okay, but still if you want to learn the complete SQL, I will share free recorded videos and which are already available in YouTube. I'll just share the link after end of the session. So almost 8 to 10 sessions I have recorded. So please go through those sessions and you will get familiar with the complete SQL end to end. Okay, and I covered all the commands. Now here I'm just going to explain only very basic stuff which is required for only for JDBC. All right. So now I'm going to show you the Oracle server and how to connect to the Oracle through this client. And later we will see how we can do the same thing in JDBC, right? So this is my SQL developer client. This is an application. This is software which I have installed in my local system. This is SQL developer, Oracle SQL developer. This is called as a client software. Okay, so even in the real time you don't install any Oracle SQL server, any database softwares you don't install in your local systems because it requires a lot of space. If you install an Oracle SQL server complete server, your machine will be very slow. Okay, so in the real time environment these servers will be located remotely and you will just install only clients in your local system. And through these clients you can access remotely available database servers. Now, so here, this is my Oracle SQL developer, right? So by using this client, I will show you how to connect to the database. So here I have created multiple connections. So you click on this plus here, it will give you one window like this, and here you need to provide some connection name. Connection name is with this particular name, it will save this connection, entire connection with this name, and that name will appear in this tree. Okay, these are the different connections I have created. Now username and password you have to provide, and here especially for Oracle database you need to provide host name, means where your Oracle server is installed. So that mission location you have to specify. Suppose if your Oracle is installed in your local system, you can specify the local host, or you can specify the IP address of the system, or you can specify the name of the machine. Okay, and then Oracle is always by default will run on some port. Any database will run on specific port number. So here 1521 is a default port of Oracle, and here we need to specify either SID or service name of Oracle. At the time of Oracle installation, you will get these details, SID and service name, and we have to provide those details, and then we need to test the connection. If it's successful, then we can do the connection and it will connect to the database. Now I have updated these connection details here. Let me just go properties and I'll show you. So these are the connection details I have. Username and password. This is a local host I have specified because my Oracle is installed in my local system, and this is my port number. This is my service name. Okay, so these details are required to connect to the database. Now when you click on the test here, and it is success, connection is success, and then click on the connect here, then it will connect to the database and it will give you one UI here. And if you expand this one, this particular node, and you will see all tables. These are all different tables available in this particular database. Now you can just query one of the table here. Let's say I have employees table here, right? So if you want to see the data of employees table, I can write one query here. This is called as SQL command. Here I need to write one query, select star from employees. Select, this is not case sensitive. SQL is a not case sensitive. You can write either lowercase letters or uppercase letters. So when I execute this command, then it will retrieve all the data which is available in the employees table, like employee ID, first name, last name, email, and so on. Okay, so this is a simple command, select command. Similarly, we can use insert command, update, delete, all the commands to work with these tables. Okay, so I will just show you very basic commands, like because as a tester most of the time we'll use only DML commands. There are so many type of commands we have, DDL, DML, DCL, TCL, okay, this TCL and so on, but especially I'm talking about only DML. Under DML we have 4 commands: insert, update, delete, insert, update, delete, and select. So these are commands comes under the DML. And select is again separated with some other language. Recently they have separated, called as a DRL. DRL is nothing but data retrieval language, because insert, update, delete commands will work against the table. Like by using insert, we can insert the data in the table. By using update, we can update the existing data in the table, or delete, we can delete the record in the table. But select command will not do anything on the table. It will just retrieve the data from the table. So that's the reason it is separated in under DRL, data retrieval language. So again DDL, we have a command called create, alter, drop. So there are different commands we have. So I have explained all these commands in my videos, so you can just go through those videos. I'll just share after the session. And under DCL we have a commit command and rollback. All these commands we have, grant, revoke. So these commands, these all comes under TCL actually. So these all comes under TCL, transaction control language. And here we have a grant and a revoke. Okay, these are all different commands are available in each and every sub language. These are all comes under the SQL language, structure query language. Structure query language. Okay, so again these are sub language of structure query language. So if you learn all these commands, that is more than enough. Okay, now I'm going to show you in the JDBC. I mostly focus on these DML and DRL because most of the times we do only these transactions, and rest of them are done by the database administrator, database developers, and creation of table, ordering, dropping, their job. We don't do those things. Okay, all right. So now, so I have just shown you how to connect to the database manually by using a client software, and also I have shown you how to work with the table. So we can just retrieve the data and also show you insert, update, delete in few minutes. So this is how we need to do at the very basic level. So connected the database by using connection details, and then I have executed this query, and this is statement, query statement, and it retrieve the data from the table. All right, so now where the JDBC come into the picture. So here what I have done is to access the database, I have just used my client software. This is SQL developer, right? By using SQL developer, I connected to the database and manually I executed these queries. But in the real time, this application is communicating with the database, right? But how it is communicating with the database? So there is no person sitting here, right? So this is tightly coupled, means application and database completely integrated. But whenever user is performing certain action or insert, update, delete or anything, who is taking the data and who is doing the same thing on the database? So whatever as a user, whatever queries we are running here, the same query should be running from here, right? Suppose user is sending some data. Internally insert command should execute against the database. Suppose user is updating some data and here update command should execute. And user is selecting the data and here select command should execute. But who will executing these queries? Between the application and the database. Who is responsibility? Who is implementing this code? So the Java JDBC will do the same job. So this is just like a program. JDBC is simply a program. So whenever you do certain actions, corresponding program will be triggered, and based upon your action, it will perform the same thing on the database. How we have done manual here? We connected to the client, executed this query, right? Similarly, our JDBC program will act as a client. Okay, so between the application and between the database, JDBC will work as a client or work as a mediator between client and the server. Okay, JDBC itself is a client. Okay, so instead of this UI client, now currently we will use this JDBC. How to connect to the database, how we can execute all the queries against the database, we'll see through JDBC program. So JDBC is nothing but Java database connectivity. Okay, so guys, are you clear so far? These are all just theoretical understanding. Now I'm going to practical part. Okay, anyone, if you have any queries, you can ask me. If you are clear, just say clear. Okay, so this is a very basic idea about SQL. Okay, so now I move to the program level. So if you want to implement this concept, now what I'm going to implement here is I am going to implement this particular portion. I have one database here. This is my database, and which contains some table. Let's say employee table or some other table. Now I'm going to write some JDBC program. This is my JDBC program. Let's just like a Java program. Okay. Now through the JDBC program, I will trigger all the queries. When I execute this select query by using JDBC program, it will go to the database and get the data. Similarly, when I execute insert command through JDBC program, it will go and insert the data in the database. Similarly, if I use update command, when I run this update command through JDBC program, it will go and update the record. And if I run the delete command from JDBC program, it will go and delete the record. Okay, so same thing will be done by the program. And here we can do manually also. In the tool, we can execute all the command. We can directly doing in the we are directly doing the database here by using this client. But here we don't do directly. JDBC program will execute those queries and will do the same job. Okay, so now we'll see how we can do this. And to do this, we need to have some prerequisites. So what are those prerequisites are? First, you need to have, let me just write prerequisites, Java database connectivity. So what are the prerequisites? Download database driver. So for every database, there will be separate driver is available. So driver is nothing but simply again one jar file. Okay, jar file which contains the predefined classes and everything. We have to download the jar file and we need to use those predefined classes. Currently Java doesn't have any predefined classes to deal with the databases. Okay, so we need to download third-party driver based upon the database you are using. So Oracle is having some different driver, SQL Server is having different driver, MySQL, DB2, every individual database is having their own drivers. Now currently I'm working with the Oracle database. Now we need to download Oracle driver. How to download Oracle JDBC driver? Just download. Type this one, okay? Then you will navigate to directly Oracle official website. Now go to this one, and you can also go to 12c is the latest version of Java, so latest version of Oracle. Just go to 12c here. Okay, now this is a download page. This is Oracle official website. Now, if you want to download any driver from this Oracle website, you have to sign up first time. Okay, so you need to sign up. You need to do sign up process by using your email ID and password. And once you get an account, and then you can download anything from the Oracle website, all open source. And some of them are licensed also there, but you can download all the free versions. Right. So now we have landed into Oracle 12 version JDBC driver pages. So here there are so many drivers are provided. These are all jar files. Okay, so the latest one is this one. We need to accept this agreement, and then have to just click on this jar file. Now it will directly download the jar file. I'll just give the direct location. This jar file we required. Okay, we need to download this. So this jar file is nothing but a classes, and it will ask username and password, and then it will start downloading. So I already downloaded this driver, and I kept here in my drivers folder. Let me keep those drivers in some place. So once you have downloaded one jar file, you will get some zip file. So you have to unzip that file, and you will see like this after downloading. So jdbc7.jar object database connectivity. Okay, so this is a jar file. This is only one jar you will get once you download this jar file. Okay, from this location. Just now I have shown you, right? So if you go and download this jar, you will get only one jar file, ojdbc7.jar file. So this jar file you have to download. There's a prerequisite. Okay, because we are interacting with the database. So every database having different drivers, and here I'm showing only for Oracle. Right, so once we get this jar file, then what we should do is if you want to use the classes methods which are already available in this jar file, if you want to use them, then we need to add this jar file to your project, in Eclipse project. How to attach this jar file to your Eclipse project? I'll show you now. Go to your Eclipse. Now this is your project currently we are working, right? So right click on your project. Now go to your properties. Go to your properties. Now here you can see Java build path. Now go to Java build path. Now here there are multiple tabs you can see. Go to libraries tab. Here sometimes you can see the class path, or sometimes you don't see anything here. If you don't see anything, no issues. If you see the class path, just select the class path and click on add external jars. Click on add external jars. And now, and wherever you have already downloaded the jar file, just select the jar file, browse the jar file, and then open. And now the jar file is attached to your project. After this, you will get apply and close. Now once you have done this, here you can see one more new, in the tree you can see one more new entry, reference to libraries. So under this reference to libraries you can see ojdbc7.jar. So this is how we need to associate the third-party drivers into your current project. So this is again third-party driver, Oracle driver. So this is driver we required because we need special classes, additional classes, which is required to interact with the databases. Okay. Now one more time I'll show you how to attach this driver. So right click on your project, go to your properties. Now select the Java build path, and inside this select the class path. If you don't have class path everything here, directly go and add external jars. Now browse the file, then open. Okay, now I already have two, so one I'll remove that. Okay, so then apply and close. So this is the navigation you have to do. So once you have done this setup configuration, now you are ready to write your JDBC program. Okay, so now to write JDBC program, I'll show you 4 different steps. We have to say only 4 steps. Okay, so what are those 4 steps? So let us say this is your database. This is your database. Now here this is your Java program. Okay, this is a Java program, or we can say JDBC program. All right. Now what we need to do is step 1 is we need to establish this is Eclipse, right? Basically this is Eclipse. This is JDBC program we will write inside the Eclipse. Okay, fine. So as a first step we need to establish a connection with the database. This is your connection. So if you do manual also we do the same thing, right? Here this is a client, SQL developer client. We want to connect to the database. What I have done first, we have to establish the connection, right? So we have established the connection. Similarly here also we need to establish the connection. This is the first step. This is called connection. This is the first step we have to do. Okay, so once the connection is established to the database, and then here in the JDBC program we have to create a statement. The second step is we have to create a statement, or we can say query. Either it can be insert query, update query, select query, or query is nothing but here we have created one statement, right? This is called query. Okay, so now that is the next step. So that's the second step. So once we establish this connection, we have to create the statement or query within your program. Now the third step, we need to execute this statement through this particular connection. This is the third step. Execute the statement. Okay, execution. So connection, creation of statement, execution of statement, and finally we need to close the connection. So this same connection was as soon as first step we have to open the connection, and then finally we have to close the connection. This is the fourth step. This is the only fourth step we have to do. Establish the connection, create the statement in JDBC program, and run the same statement, execute the same statement through this connection and close the connection. So to do these things we have a special classes available. So to establish the connection we have to use a class called as a predefined class called as a connection class. And to create the statement and execute the statement we have to use a class called statement class. And to execute this statement we have to use a method called execute method. And this scenario, these 3 steps or 4 steps are applicable for insert, update and delete. Insert, update, delete is different. Insert, update and delete. So these 3 commands will work in one way. Means insertion will happen in the database, but this command is not returning anything for you. Update is also update on the database, but it is not returning anything. Delete also will happen on the only database. It is not returning anything. But select is different. When you execute your select command, it will go to the database and fetch the data and retrieve the data to you. Okay, it will return the data. So if the select command returns the data, we have to use one more class here, special class called as a result set class. This is only applicable for only select command. Okay, so these are the steps we need to follow, step by step process, and every step we have a special classes we need to use. Now first I will show you insert, update, delete, and then I will show you select command. Now I will just specify the steps here one by one. Just a second. Okay, these are the steps. Create a connection, create a query or statement, execute the statement, then close the connection. Let's go to your Eclipse. Now here I will create a small JDBC program. Prerequisite, we already done it. Okay, we have added the jar file to your project. Now in the same project, same package, I will create the first program, JDBC example1. JDBC example1. Let's take a main method. Now as a first step, I said 4 steps, right? So these are 4 steps. I'll copy it and put it in the program. Alright, so these are the 4 steps I'm going to implement now. The first thing, we need to establish the connection. This is the first thing. Establish the connection or create the connection. So if you want to create the connection, we have a special class called as a connection class, right? So we have to use that. So connection con is equal to some object name is required. Con is equal to, and here we don't say new connection everything. Okay, we have a special class called as driver manager. This is also coming from the driver. Okay, driver manager dot get connection. This method will establish the connection with the database and store that connection in this particular variable. And whenever you are using these classes, we have to import proper packages. So when I use connection class, and it will be available in multiple packages. See now, but we need to import the correct package. What is that? Java.sql. This is the predefined packages. In the previous session, I told you, right? User defined package and predefined package. So these are all different packages day-wise we created. These are all user defined packages. Okay, so but here this is a predefined package which is already there in Java. Alright, so now connection object I created, connection variable is equal to driver manager dot get connection. Even driver manager also we need to import. Import this driver manager from java.sql. Now, so if this method want to execute a connection, establish a connection to the database, we need to pass some details, right? And then only it will establish a connection to the database. So even in the SQL developer client, we have specified all the connection details at the beginning, right? So then it is able to connect to the database. So here, when I put the properties here, it will show connection details. So these connection details we have to provide at the beginning, right? Similarly, this statement will establish the connection to the database. So to do that, we need to pass some details here. So we need to pass connection string. This is called as a connection string. So JDBC colon, Oracle colon, thin colon at the rate localhost. Here you can use IP address or machine name, or if your Oracle is installed in your local system, you can just specify the localhost here. And colon 1521 is a port number, service name, username, and password. So this is called completely connection string. This string format should be exactly the same. We should not change anything here. And this is the only format that driver can be understand. Otherwise, the driver will throw an error. Okay. And one more thing is this connection string will change one database to another database. Details will be the same, but syntactically there will be some difference. Okay. But we must create the connection. Every database is the same process. Same 4 steps we have to do for every database. Only thing is there are some parameters will be changed. Even the connection class is also same. Class is also same. Okay. All right. So now we have established this add throws declaration. Okay. So now it is done. So once it is done, so connection con is equal to driver manager dot get connection. We specify the connection. Then what is the next step? Once we establish the connection, we have to create a statement. That's the second step. So we have to, this the first step is done. And the second step is create a query or a statement. Create a query or statement. So here we have to use a statement class object. Statement stmt, some variable name I'm specifying, and this statement we have to execute through this connection, right? So that's the reason we need to use con dot create statement method. We have to use create statement, con dot create statement. So still we haven't created statement. We have just created the statement variable. This is a statement. We have to import this from java.sql. Okay. Statement stmt is equal to con dot create statement. We have to just create the statement variable, but now we need to write a statement. So let me just store a statement in variable called s is equal to, first of all I'll write some insert command, and before that let me check is there any other table is available or not in my database. So currently I have I will just use a student table I have, right? So let me just ping my user student table. I'm just reconnecting it. Yeah. So now select star from student. Okay. So when I execute this, so it is giving SID and SNAME. So currently I have only 2 columns and 2 rows. Okay. Now I'm trying to insert a new record in the same table. So normally how to write insert command? We have to write like this: insert into table is student. Insert into student values, and here we need to specify the value. SID is equal to, let's say 105 I want to insert, comma, and in the single quote we have to specify the name of the student. Let's say here John. So this is actually insert statement we have to execute. So this statement will insert the new record in the table. But now I'm not going to execute this command from here. I want to execute this command through my JDBC program. So here I will copy that. So put that into double quotation. The complete command should be in the double quotations. Okay, now this statement I want to execute through this statement object. Okay, so how we can execute? Now we have just created a query or statement. So two steps we have achieved. Create a connection is done. Now we have create a query or statement we have done. So if you want to create a query, we have to first statement variable have to create and associate this statement through connection, and then we have created the statement. Now we need to execute this statement. To execute this statement, we have to specify the one more method by using the statement object stmt dot. There is a method called execute method, and here we need to pass SQL query. So SQL query already stored in variable, right? So that yes, we have to pass here. Execute, not only execute, it is execute query dot execute stmt dot execute query. Okay, now we need to pass a SQL command. So here SQL command is already stored in a variable. So I'm just passing this, or else you can directly write a SQL command here itself. You don't require this variable. Okay, directly you can write this entire command here itself. Okay, now this statement will execute this command against the database. So once it is executed, what's the fourth step? We need to close the connection. And the fourth step is close the connection. How to close the connection? Con representing the connection object. So con dot close. So this will close the connection. Okay, this is a JDBC program. Simple program. Just 4 steps. It's very, very simple. Connection object we created, and here we have to provide the details of connection. And statement variable have to create by using connection object dot create statement. Then store your query in some variable and execute this statement by using statement variable dot execute query method, and then close the connection. Now when I run this program, what happens is this program will execute this statement, and when you go and verify the execute this query, select star from student, we will see the new record in this table. So currently how many records we have? 103 and 104. There are only 2 records we have, right? 2 records we have. Now I will execute my program and then we'll see that. So after completion of this, I will just write some println message to just confirmation. System.out.println. Here I'll just say program completed. Program is completed. Alright, so now I'm just running this code. Instead of running the commands in the client, we are just running through JDBC program. Okay. Now run as Java application. Okay, it's giving some error. Not suitable driver found. So that means the driver is not properly added. Let me just add the driver. Right click, properties, go to class path. Yeah, I don't have driver, so we need to add the driver. Add external jars, select this driver, open. Now it is there. Apply and close. Now in the reference libraries, we can see the driver, right? So now execute this. Run as Java application. So now it is done. Program is completed, right? So now we can go and execute this. Currently we have 2 records. Now execute the same query from the client. Now we can see there is no new record which is inserted in the table. Okay, so we inserted this record. Our JDBC program will inserted the record. Okay, so this is how we can just also execute other commands. Suppose I want to update the existing record. So for example, there is 103 record is David, right? So I want to change the name of 103 record. So currently 103 record is having David is a name. I want to change this name. So how to write the update query here? Update student set yes name is equal to, and just say Smith. Okay, so S name is equal to Smith. For whom I have to change the name? Where SID is equal to 103. So when I run this particular query, what happens is in the student table, wherever it finds SID is equal to 103, that name of the record will be changed. S name record will be changed. David to Smith. This is called update. So now I'll run the same command through my JDBC program. So now I just change the command here. Comment this. Now I will just change the query. So this query I will put it here. This is my update query. So previously we have seen how to insert. Now I'm doing updation by using this command. So 103 I want to update with the Smith name. Previously it was David, now it will replace with the Smith. Okay, fine. So now SID is 103. Now I want to replace 103 record with the Smith. So currently what is it? We have David is there. Now let me just run this, run my Java application. Before this, let me just commit all the records first of all. Commit means this commit command will perform all the transactions permanently. Okay, now. So now currently if I select this table, currently we have only 3 records. 103 is David. Now I'm running my JDBC program. Okay, now program is completed. Now go here and one more time execute this query. Now you can see 103 record name is updated with Smith. So this is how we need to update the existing record. Suppose I want to delete the record. So how we can delete? So we have to write a statement like this if you want to delete the record. So if you want to delete the record, the command is delete from students, where SID is equal to 103. So currently if I see the data in the table, 103's record is available. Now I want to delete the 103 record by using this command, delete from students where SID is equal to 103. Same command I will run through my JDBC program. So here I will create one more. Okay, so now here I can say delete here. I'll comment this one. Okay, now I'll run this code and see that. So currently we have 103 is available. Now when I run this, okay, so table or view does not exist. I think students, spelling mistake. Let me check. Delete from students where SID is equal to 103. Delete from student. Table view is not exist. Let me verify one more time. Student, it's not students. Okay, student is available. All right. Now run this code. Okay, now it is completed. Now go and execute this query again. So now 103 record is deleted. Okay, so this is how we need to execute the insert, update and delete commands. Insert, update and delete commands. And insert, update and delete commands are only one-way communication. It will go and execute against the database. But when I use select command, it will also return the data, right? But how we can get the data and print it here? We can capture the data also. So for that, we need to just use one more step additionally. That is result set object we have to create and we can store the data. So the same example I just slightly modify. Let me just create one more example, JDBC example 2. Same thing, nothing is changed. Okay, so connection object is same, statement object I will just change here. Instead of normal variable, I'll say only select command here. So here, this time I will get the data from different table. Let's say I'll take employees table. Select star from employee. So we have huge data, right? So I will get employee ID, first name and last name. Okay. So if you want to get all the columns, you can still get. I'll show you how we can do this. So this is a query I want to execute. Now I'll put the query here. Semicolon should be out of double quotes. Now this time we are using select query, right? So after execution of query, this statement will return the data, right? So we need to store the data in some variable here. Okay, so we need to store the data in some variable because in previously insert, update, delete commands are not returning any data. But this time this statement is returning some data. So that we need to create one variable. Let me just say as rs is equal to, and this variable must be result set type variable. Result set type variable. Result set again we need to import from java.sql. Okay. Now rs contains the data, right? So now we need to extract this data. We need to get the data one by one. I want to print in my console window. But rs contains some data, but we don't know how many records we have in rs. Here we have so many records are available, but we don't know exactly rs contains, right? But how we can read all the data? If you know the limit, we can write one for loop or, but we don't know how many records we have. So in those cases, better to go for while loop, because while we can use rs.next command. So next method, what this method will do is rs dot next method will check whether is there any record or present in rs or not. If the record is present, then this condition becomes true, and then we need to extract all the data from this rs. How to get it? Rs dot, now I want to get the first column, employee underscore id. This is an integer column, right? Number column. So rs dot method is get int of, here we have to specify the exact column name. The column name is employee underscore id. Let's say employee underscore id. Now what happens is, from this rs, the first record from the rs, it is get the value of employee id. I can store that into a variable called int eid is equal to. Similarly, I can extract all other columns. So for example, first name is a string, first underscore name is a string. So how to write? Rs dot get the string of first underscore name. First underscore name. This is another value. This is another column, and store that into a string variable. String. This is a first name. Let's say f name is equal to. Okay. Similarly, I can get the last name. So same thing. Okay, last name. Let's say L name, and rs dot get string of, I'll just say last underscore name. So you can write multiple statements here, because star is representing, it retrieves all the columns. Okay, all the columns. So we can capture here few columns, or we can capture all the columns. That you up to again your requirement. If you want to capture all the columns, here we have to use star, and here you have to write all the commands. So multiple entries for every column, you have to write single statement. But here I want to get only 3 columns, so I'm just capturing only employee ID, first name, and the last name. And I've stored them in 3 different variables. Now I want to print them. So system dot out dot println. So first I want to print eid, and concatenation by, I'll give some space here, and concatenation side by side I'm just printing. Okay, f name, and concatenation again some space, and concatenation, and then last name, L name. Okay, so here I'm just giving some concatenation, some space. Okay, that's it. So now this loop will first check the record is available rs or not. If record is available, then read eid, first name and last name for the first record, print it here. Then it will go up again, it will check next record. It is available, condition becomes true, again it will capture the employee ID, first name, last name, and print it here. And this loop will repeat till end of the record, last record. Once it is done, fourth step is again close. Okay, so this is a additional step we need to write if this particular statement is written some data. Especially for select command will retrieve the data from the database, and later these data we can use for data driven testing. Okay, in Selenium I will again touch this concept. Okay, this is just a basic understanding of JDBC. Again this concept will be repeated in the Selenium classes, right? So till now just we capture the data from database and printing in my console window. Now run as Java application. Now you can observe here clearly. Now we can see 206 record we have totally. Now we go and see the database also. Here totally 206 record. 206 is the last employee ID. So it is giving 206 is the last employee ID. Okay, so this is how we need to work with the database by using JDBC concept. This is all about JDBC concept. Okay, so guys, are you clear now? So any queries on this? Anyone? So just remember these steps. Okay, if it is a select statement, we need to add just a result set variable here and store the result here. Just write one more while loop to read all the data. And if you want to practice this concept, you need to have database. Oracle database should be installed in your system, and then only you can practice this JDBC concept. And array list hash map you can practice, but especially for JDBC you require Oracle database should be installed in your system, and then only can do that. Okay, but in the real time you don't install anything, so everything is available. You will get connection details only, and then you can just connect your database by using these details, and you can install your Oracle client software in your system, and using this client software you can work with the tables. All right, so I'll just stop it here. This is the last session for Java, and tomorrow onwards we'll start Selenium WebDriver. Okay, so please practice this concept. If I have any queries on this, now you can ask me.